The broadcast is live. Here we go.
All right, guys.
Good evening, everyone.
What's going on? Now I'm cracking up about the pre-show stuff we talked about. We've got our names right. We all know our names now. We'll just say that. We know our names.
Paolo's name is Paolo. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I just call him Paolo.
We start calling him Paella from now on.
Yo,
And I put him on a whole. I put him on a whole other continent. I mean,
yeah, for some reason, thought he was from Argentina. Where did that come from? I don't even
remember saying Argentina. I don't remember it coming out of my mouth. But
you could have at least picked Brazil, where they speak Portuguese.
Well, I forgive you because, as we all know, Americans don't understand anything about geography.
Well, that's true.
Hold on.
We do, however, understand that the Brits would be speaking German if we hadn't pitched in to help.
No.
Well, English is a German language.
I have no excuse. I read maps for fun, and I collect notes. I'm being totally honest.
I don't know what it is, but I've always loved globes. There's something about them I just like.
Yeah, I still have an old globe here. That my dad would one of those old ones that had a lamp inside, so they could project onto the countries and kind of try to make it where the star charts would be over the globe. But of course, that hasn't had a lamp inside it for like 30 years. So,
right.
But that's where I learned all the countries' names and capitals. When I was 6 or 7, my relatives would like to be dazzled by me knowing all the capitals of foreign exotic countries.
Okay, yeah. I've seen most Americans, if you give them a map of the United States with none of the states' names on them, they can't feel them.
I used to work with a guy, and he wasn't terribly dumb, but he wasn't the brightest guy in the world. I'll put it nicely. And so I took a legal pad one day because he was doing something. I numbered it 1 through 50. Okay. I was like, write down all the states that you can. Okay. He got to 39, but some of the ones he put on there were not actual states.
That sounds like an episode of Friends.
He listed San Francisco as a state.
Okay.
And he also listed New England as a state.
Hey, they got a football team.
That was his thing. I'm like, where do you get New England? I was like, well, that's where the Patriots play. I'm like, they play in Massachusetts.
Yeah, so there's probably a Golden State because of the Golden State Warriors.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't get.
He wasn't a basketball.
He wasn't a basketball fan, exactly.
The geography thing. Go ahead.
Go ahead. It was just. It's like.
It's
my mind
what people
exploded
don't
when
know.
I saw that list. I'm like, wow.
It's funny what people don't know.
My thing that kills me is I can hang in there with geography. I mean, I just read it for fun. If there was a map or something, I would stop everything. I look at globe. What gets me is like I don't understand how big European countries are. I need to know. I'm like, I've heard England is the size of Virginia. I don't know. I'm like,
England's about the same size as the state of Oregon in terms of landmass.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen one of the Mercator maps that is adjusted for distortion, where it actually shows you the actual size versus what's trying to fit onto a globe?
What's it called?
Our maps show the United States bigger than it actually is.
Yes.
What kind of a map is that? I'm writing it down.
No, the Mercator is the traditional projection. I used to know that this one as well.
I'm sure there's a term for the non-distorted view, but I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah, it's a globe.
Yeah. The problem is when you make a map, it's in 2 dimensions and flat, and the globe is in 3 dimensions and round. So.
And Tim, this may blow your mind. If you took a straight line and you dropped it from Radford, Virginia on a map.
Australia, we go to Africa.
No, if you dropped it straight down, it would not touch South America.
Interesting.
South America is so far east.
It's shifted over.
America,
right.
We forget it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like the west coast of South America is like Florida. It's even with Florida.
One viewer on a Friday night and a payday weekend at the end of the month. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Is there football tonight?
I don't know if there's football or not, man. I'm just saying. I just know that what I saw trying to come home and stuff is that I'm not going back out there. They're crazy. But it's this is amazing. I did see one of those maps where it actually lined up where everything is at, if that makes sense.
Right.
And if you go straight across, Virginia will meet up with Africa. And I was like, okay, this is what I need. This is what I need. I need to know.
He needs to know that.
I just couldn't understand how an island that you're supposed to be able to drive across in 8 hours took over half the world at one point, more or less.
They had really good boats.
How do they not overpopulate? Those are my questions. Really
they had
good.
They had really good boats, and Spain ran into a hurricane.
That's a large part of it.
Yeah, it's amazing how much of history is happenstance.
Again, I know all this stuff, but you're putting it together for me. You know,
if the Spanish Armada didn't run into a hurricane, or whatever they call
no one expects a Spanish hurricane.
Yeah, I don't even think they call them. Do they even call them hurricanes up by England? What do they call them?
There are not supposed to be hurricanes in England.
Yeah,
they're extremely rare.
What is the other term? There's a term that's used in Asia.
That's a typhoon. It's a typhoon when it's in the Pacific, and a hurricane when it's in the Atlantic. But it's like there are no hurricanes up by Spain and England, so that's what made the Spanish Armada thing even.
All right, in the North Atlantic, they're called cyclones. That's it.
Cyclones.
Yeah.
And
I think I found the correct projection. It's the Dyer projection.
The Dyer projection.
I'm right. Cool.
That sounds more like an economic projection.
Yeah, but it's all stretched out and makes Africa actually big, and Greenland is tiny. It's supposed to be.
People do not realize how big Africa actually is. It's huge.
Well, I do. We had colonies there.
Yeah.
They teach us that in school because we were the first ones to go around it, so we know how big it is.
It took a long time to get to the Cape of Good Hope.
Yeah, I was about to make a comment, but I think it might have been insensitive because I caught it at the end there. I was going to say he had roots, and I'm like, whoa, wait.
Was it Vasco da Gama? He was the first.
He was the first one to reach India. It was Bartolomeu Dias who reached the Cape of Good Hope.
Okay.
All right, so I told y'all beforehand, I'm not going to get into it here because I don't know how the YouTube things work. If I even say the word, they might come after me again. But I had a copyright strike showing my last comic book haul, right? But what I want to point out is the things that was sad about me privatizing that and all that stuff was what was interesting for me was a book. Out of everything I shown in an hour and a half there and just talking and being all chill and stuff, the one that everybody was surprised about is that there was a Baron Munchausen comic.
I didn't know that.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Right. I remember these on the stand, but by this time I had figured out Now Comics was not the best. If you
it was Now Comics?
Now Comics. These were $1.75 when everything else was $1 and $1.25.
Right.
And you know what I'm saying? So after reading a few of their books and I didn't spend the money to get these. So I got 3 out of the 4. That's the movie adaptation of Terry Gilliam's Baron Munchausen. This was the book that I heard over and over what Scott just did. I didn't know there was a Baron Munchausen.
No, I had no idea. And I thought I was up on my Munchausen stuff.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know there was a movie from the 30s or 40s of Baron Munchausen.
Yes.
I found that over the weekend.
And tying into your T-shirt, there's a Baron Munchausen role-playing game.
That doesn't surprise me. I swear, I think there's a role-playing game for almost everything now.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah. But I haven't cracked these open or anything, but this was the kind of thing where I hadn't been to any cons all year. So when I did Will and Deal, it was a little like $1 off here, maybe combine some books, get $5 off, nothing. So I was like, yeah, I'm getting it, $1 a piece,
Who are the creators?
That is a good question. I'm going to crack it open.
Crack it open. Tell us.
Yeah. But I actually do like the painted the covers.
Yeah, they're pretty neat.
They're just fun. Okay, here we go. Ready? Synopsis: Matthew Costello. Artwork produced by Insight Studios. Ernie Golano pencils. Damon Willis inks and colors. Mark Hempel did the letters. I know that name. I think Mark Hempel is the guy that does Ralph Snart, so he did the letters.
No, Mark Hempel.
When the most famous guy
did Ralph Snart.
When the most famous guy in the creative team is the letterer.
Mark Hempel and Mark Wheatley used to be a team. They did Mars, amongst other things.
As soon as it came out of my mouth, I went, "Shut up."
They worked on a lot of the John Quest comics.
Breathtaker, did they do that one too for Piranha Press?
think Breathtaker. Maybe, but it seems like Dylan Horlock or Dylan Horick.
No, I'm thinking the one from the early '90s.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about because I can visualize the ad. It's burned into my brain.
Yeah, I have the comics, and I think I don't know if Hempel did that by himself or it was Hempel and Wheatley.
I honestly don't know.
I thought it was Wheatley by himself.
Was it Wheatley by himself?
I think it was.
We can find out.
Could have been. Yeah, we can look it up.
Let's find out.
This thing still smells brand new from.
It's got the ink smell to it.
Yes, I mean, it just hit me. I'm like, wow. I love that smell.
It's brand new when you know when it smells like the ink and not the paper.
Yeah, okay. I bet nobody's ever read these. I mean, you know what I mean? These actual issues I'm holding.
Breathtaker was both Mark Hempel and Mark Wheatley. So.
Yeah, okay. Here's what's bad. I have things autographed, and I met Mark Hempel at Baltimore Con. It's been a hell of a week at work. I'm going to have to own it and put it out there. I'm going to embarrass myself tonight, and we're all going to have a good laugh. You know,
I got a original Sandman page from Mark Hempel back at Heroes Con years and years ago, and I ran into financial difficulty a couple of years ago and had to sell it. Mm-hmm. And I sold it for over 10 times what I paid for it.
Well, that's good.
What did I get him to sign? I got him to sign. I thought, oh no, I bought a print off of him. Yeah, I'm gonna dig it out. So.
See, I first heard of them from I think First Comics put out Mars.
Yeah.
In the 80s, and I enjoyed that. It was like a 10-issue mini.
Yeah.
By Hempel and Wheatley.
They both worked on a lot of the Johnny Quest comics at Comico or Comico.
Yeah.
I always said Comico.
I have been corrected many times by viewers that it is Comico. I have been bombarded.
I just always thought that Comico sounded like a female Japanese name.
Well, you're holding a comic book, and the first letters spell comic, and they added an O.
Right.
I mean, some people were nice about it. Don't get me wrong. Don't want to act like I got mobbed, which I didn't. I did later, you know. But it's Comico, so I'm like, okay, I'll go with everybody on this one, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And something that fascinated me is like before the trades were big, I was tickled to death to get these, and I got them half off and stuff. And again, I don't think anybody's ever read these. These are the first prints from 88 and 89 or 89 and 90. But the Trial of Galactus and that Peter David McFarlane Hulk. I could have got some of the original issues, but and then I got told I haven't cracked these open yet. I almost started last night, but I was told that the early Marvel trades, I don't know if it's true or not, they would take out pages if they were subplot. Like you would only get the main story.
I've heard that too. I think they did. I'm not 100% sure because I didn't have any of them, but I've heard that too.
But I tell you what, going back and revisiting the, John Byrne in the early 80s there and stuff like that, looking at this work, it is so solid and so good. He draws the best Galactus. It's like it's Kirby, Byrne, and Ross. You know, I mean,
I have not looked at those. I bought them all when they came out, but I wasn't a huge fan of the Byrne FF. I mean, certainly enough to buy them and read them.
Yeah.
But I never went back to them ever. So it's like they're a complete mystery to me now because I don't remember them at all.
Well, what the great thing was reading them is that he had a plan. He would do a little story, and then maybe 2 years later he revisited, and it didn't feel like it was like on a whim. You know what I mean? I think his goal was to break the record with Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. So in my mind, when I read those books, he had a loose 100 issue.
Right. If I remember correctly, my favorite issue wasn't one that was early on. What was the double-sized one? 236 or something?
20th anniversary issue.
Something with the Doom in a little town they were in.
Yeah. That harked back to Lee and Kirby story.
Right.
Yeah.
That one I remember especially liking of the John Byrne FFs.
Yeah.
I was a big fan of the John Byrne FFs, even though at first being 6 or 7, I'm not into. Byrne changed the uniform so that they weren't superhero costumes,
right?
So no visible muscles, and that. Why are the clothes not sticking?
What was cool about stuff like that is maybe that's what laid the groundwork, but he did it in story. They went to the negative zone and it messed up the colors,
Yeah, I have a bunch of those in a box and I haven't looked at them probably since I bought them.
Yeah, like I said, I've never revisited it, so I don't know how they read now. Though I did look at, I remember my friend. I'll have to borrow it from him to make a video. My friend bought the John Byrne FF Artist Edition, and I remember looking through it with him. And one of the things I remember the critique at the time that he was inking himself on those. And a lot of people didn't like the inks on it. And me looking at it now, with what I know now, looking at that artist edition, I can see why people didn't like the inks on it. Because at that time, he wasn't really inking. He was drawing over his pencils. So it was a different sort of thing.
Well, also, I don't know if it's in the artist edition, but he bragged on how he was getting paid for pencil and inking on Fantastic Four when he was just doing straight inks.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, probably he was doing very little penciling. He was drawing right in ink. Yeah. Well, that's because he wasn't. There's a difference between drawing and inking, and he wasn't doing any real inking in that he wasn't giving it shadow and form and stuff like, which is what inkers traditionally always. Now colorists kind of do that.
Yeah, and his fans that hang out at Burn Robotics, if you start critiquing his work, saying you like the earlier stuff, they'll swarm you. I'm like,
I've heard interesting things about that forum.
Nick, Ed and Nick has a video where they posted his video or the link on Burn Robotics message board, and they came after.
Yeah,
it's still up.
I saw that.
Oh yeah.
I got a taste of it on like Twitter or something. The first time I used Twitter or something. Nothing like Ed and Nick got,
And John Byrne went to war with Wikipedia once.
Yes,
he completely removed everything and turned it into a John Byrne is an artist currently working on this. Nothing else matters.
Yeah, he molded and shaped his own Wikipedia page.
Yeah. Going back to the discussion about artist editions and how the reproduction of the artwork, the one for Mark Schultz's Xenozoic Tales. His originals are pristine.
Right.
They are scary how finished they are.
You we look so damn shady. You showed me that in the middle of a parking lot.
Yeah, we did.
With your hatchback open.
Right. I imagine somebody else that was, walking by, like, what the hell are those two guys doing?
Oh, you see you doing this on the back of a car.
Yeah.
So you want to see what comics I got this week?
Sure.
Yeah, we'll alternate there. I'll show some Kirby stuff when you're done. Yeah.
It's Kirby's birthday today. Yes. Right to see everybody.
103.
The first one I got here is Kaiju Max.
I've always wanted to read that.
Season 5, issue 4 is really good. It's wraparound cover.
Right.
Already on season 5?
Yeah. On season 5.
Amazing.
They're all 6-issue minis.
I've always been a fan of Xander Cannon's work.
And it's a mashup between giant monsters and a prison drama. And like I said, it's one of the most human books out there because there's all sorts of prison drama stuff going on, except with giant monsters. And the guards are humans in giant robot machines.
Okay.
And I remember when Valentino became Image publisher, that the ad for Replacement God, and I thought about trying it out, but then I never found a trade paperback, so I didn't.
I rather liked Replacement God.
Well, this is real. This is real. I very much enjoy this one. I missed out on season 1 and started picking it up with season 2. And what was interesting was season 2 was a little different in that it was about a parolee.
I may or may not have the very first issue of that because I think I got it and Shudder, a book called Shudder at the same time.
I think I bought the first issue of Shudder too. Whoops, dropped mine.
Too bad Damien isn't here yet. He's a big fan of Kaiju Max. He always brings it up.
That's why I started buying Kaiju Max because I saw it on Sleepy Readers hauls for a while. And like I said, season 2 was coming out. I was like, I may as well pick that up. And this is finally made it out. The last issue of Stray Bullets, Sunshine and Roses, number 42. Any of you guys read Stray Bullets?
I have the first trade, but then I never got back to it.
Which is which first trade, Sunshine and Roses or The Innocence of Nihilism?
I can't even remember.
Oh, okay.
Volume 1. I've got most of Volume 1, whatever Volume 1 was.
One of my favorite books, David Lapham. He works on the 8-panel grid mostly in this book. And nothing good ever comes to his character. Most of though this one was kind of about 2 characters for most of it. A lot of Stray Bullets is about some sort of normal person getting caught up in this world of low-level crime, and then just bad things happen to him. There's like no happy endings.
Kind of like Breaking Bad in that regard.
No, Breaking Bad or about one guy.
Okay, gotcha.
This is more well, like I said, this series was about, and what's interesting is this series happened before The Innocence of Nihilism, the very first Stray Bullet story, and this series ends with the beginning of the Volume 1 Innocence of Nihilism story, because like this all takes place in. The Stray Bullets used to flip around a lot between like 1982, 1987, 1984. It would just tell stories from different eras in the 80s about small-time criminals.
Yeah, it came out as a crime comic, and it started out in the 70s, 1995. Right. I was on board. I got the first 15 issues. They stopped ordering it at shops, and then I got half of the 20s and some sporadic ones. And I was devastated, but it was also not coming out regularly. But there's a scene in the first volume where he redoes 1977, where a kid is running out after he just saw Star Wars for the first time. And I was like, I found me in the story. It's me. Yeah. You
know? What's funny is I wasn't down with Stray Bullets at first.
Oh, I was, man. Yeah.
Because I didn't pick it up till like, I forget what, somewhere in the single digits. But I think it was an Amy race car issue.
Yeah.
And the Amy race car issues are real weird because they're one of the characters there when she was a little girl fantasizing that she's this sci-fi hero. And then have an occasional issue that was like that.
It was like Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah, it was, and it's just bizarre and weird. I picked it up and was like, "Wow, I didn't even get it." And then the next issue I tried was like issues, and I think it was another Amy race car story. You know, it's just like, I don't know what's going on in this book.
We're going back almost close to 25 years, but if I'm remembering right, you got to see the issue where you see she is nuts in school.
Right.
She turns around and stabs a kid with a pencil. And this is like in the 70s, you know.
But then somewhere around issue 15, I was just like, I'm just going to start picking it up. And I've been buying it ever since. Matter of fact, let me show you these. These are my favorite volumes.
But Stray Bullets, man, I think he did that book because he went to Valiant, got hired, you know, and all that stuff. And then he went to Defiant, and then Defiant went out. So he just started putting out his own book. Yeah.
Right. These are my favorite volumes. They're hardcover. They're oversized. I don't know if you can get them anymore. Volume 4 never came out.
Yeah.
But there's 3 volumes this size. If you can find them, they're really nice. Because, you know, you get the big oversized art. So this one ends where this one begins.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny.
But I tell you what, I mean, that book is so indie and so good that it should be called an 80s alternative comic. I mean, it's pure.
It is so good.
I remember that when they started talking about it, it was as a follow-up to Sin City, because they thought there's going to be an interest in crime comics.
Yeah.
Right.
But you know, it was the 90s, so even though in the 90s you could publish anything, it always got drowned in the sea of superheroes.
Right.
Yeah. It's funny, Tim. It's funny. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Image put out a collection of Volume 1 called the Uber Alles edition. It's got all 44 issues in one trade paperback.
Right. I was going to say, it's like you were talking about indie books and things like that. It's like when people bring up Brian Bendis these days, I don't think about Marvel. I think, but you mean the guy that wrote Jinx? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, That shows you how out of touch I am.
You know what happened last time we mentioned Bendis in this show? It went off the rails.
I've already been shaking my head.
The first Bendis comic I read was Goldfish.
I had that very first issue where
I have.
Well, I didn't pick up. I didn't continue trying to get it because if I'm remembering right, the first 5 pages is nothing but a dollar bill floating to the ground.
Nah.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell did I just read?
And along with the last issue of Stray Bullets comes out the last issue for now of White Ash. It says Series 2 will be out in summer 2021. But this has been I've really enjoyed this series. Issue 5 especially had some nice art. And this is issue 6, wraps up the story arc, and it was pretty good. It takes place in a mining town in Pennsylvania, where the lead character who was looking to go off to college finds out he's half. First of all, he finds out that there's such a thing as elves, dwarves, and vampires and weird stuff like that. And he finds out his father was a dwarf. Hence the mining town in Pennsylvania. The dwarves work in the mine. And it was mostly the story of him discovering what was going on in his own town after his father died.
Right.
Who protected him from all this. But really nice artwork in it. That's what first caught my eye in it, and I enjoyed the writing too. So I'm sure it's Scout Comics. It's by, let me see these guys' names because I don't know them. Charlie Stickney is the writer. Connor Hughes is the illustrator and letterer, and the colors by Finn Cram. But nice stuff. Check it out in the trade if you're looking for something sort of interesting, realistic fantasy book.
Nice. I just realized I'm gonna have to change the name of this one because it's Kirby's birthday. I mean, what am I thinking? I've got videos where I've got a little tie on saying it's Kirby's birthday. What the hell? I've gone downhill. But but I was able to pick up some stuff with Kirby's birthday. I just knew that this was the month that it was his birthday when I was there. It dawned on me. And what's bad is I left one book behind because I thought it was in the stack, and I felt bad because when I grabbed the Forever People here, this kid, and he's a kid to me, he might be in his early 20s, kind of walked up to me and was like, "Are you going to buy those Forever People, sir?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah." No,
you get nothing, kid. Nothing.
Yeah, but I got a good deal on the Forever People. Forever People may be some of the first Kirby I could sit down with the Commandy and stuff. This stuff was all over the house, right? But the Forever People, Machine Man, and probably Commandy and OMAC was some of the first stuff I could read of his that didn't scare my little kid thing, right? And I've been fascinated with the Forever People because these are just hard to find. I read the same 3 issues over and over and over. But I'm a fan of Mark Moonrider, Beautiful Dreamer, all this stuff. It's nice to finally be able to sit down and actually read these. These were the 2 that I read over and over where they forced Deadman in there. And they have reprints from the 40s of his Sandman stuff. That was how I started getting into the history of it.
I didn't read any Forever People as a kid.
Me either.
Never even saw it
around. I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, it's all right. I mean, they're hitting for the hippie young crowd in it.
Oh, I finally read the whole Jack Kirby Fourth World when they put out those omnibuses where they printed them all in chronological order.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed those.
Yeah. I mean, of course, the Commandy, the New Gods. I still have the first issue of New Gods with the cover gone because the Disintegrator replaced it. Got a good deal on it. I'm glad I did. But the New Gods stuff, that New Gods is #1 with the big statues and Supertown, New Genesis, Supertown, whatever, and all that stuff. It's timeless. I mean, I think it still holds up. It's the coloring that he picked that kind of dates it a little bit, but that was Kirby. But Machine Man, if there was ever a sci-fi show or something that needed to be made, it's Machine Man. It's old X-51. What felt like it was weird in the 70s was just ahead of its time. That's all there is to it. I think what's funny?
I have never read all of those Machine Mans. I've read an issue here or there, and I'm okay with that because I like the idea that there's some Kirby I still haven't read. Right. And I look forward to reading it someday.
Yeah.
Didn't Barry Windsor-Smith work on that at one point?
Yeah, he did finishes over Trippy in the early 80s on me.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it was a mini series. It was set in the future. That's actually the first time I saw Machine Man, because the first 3 issues were Trimpy and Windsor Smith, but number 4 is the one with really good art because it's Windsor Smith on his own.
Oh.
And that's where they have the big fight between Machine Man and Arno Stark, and it's a great fight.
Yeah, I first saw Machine Man and the Hulk. I think it was Hulk, like 235, 236. The Machine Man.
Yeah, Roger Stern wrapped up the Kirby storyline.
Yeah, and it had the big the TV Smash show or something.
Yes.
Whatever.
I've seen on TV.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, Hulk 236 was the one issue. As I've said before, I consider Hulk 200 to be the start of my collecting. So Hulk 236 is what, exactly 3 years later?
Right.
And I was missing that issue. Never came to my local newsstand, and I was missing it for like a year or two.
Or did it because somebody liked the show and they were like, "Oh, that is the same guy." On the cover. The Smash.
No, I got to the newsstand as soon as the new comics were put out every Thursday. Matter of fact, we used to annoy the store owner, my friends and I, because you put the comics out yet? Did you put the comics out yet? Did you put the comics out yet? And he'd be like, I'm working here.
These guys again.
Yeah. I'm busy unpacking important stuff like newspapers.
Yeah. So I never got 230. Yeah, matter of fact, 236 gave me I still remember the guy's name because there was some guy who was like 2 streets over from me who was older than I was probably, well, let's see. I was probably 14 at the time. So this guy was probably in high school and he set up his garage to be like he was selling comics. But he had them priced at like I was a kid. I was used to buying old comics for a nickel or a quarter or whatever. That's what you did in the neighborhood. You heard so and so was selling comics.
That's what Tim still does.
Yeah, they're selling them for a nickel or a quarter. You'd go over and get them. He was selling them for like guide prices.
That's how I can afford my globes. All right.
Well, I remember
I had to pay $2 for Hulk 236, and I was just like, "Whoa!" Yeah, so from then on, I never saw him again. I still remember his name. I think was like Greg Vetter, because from then on in, we referred to everybody who was selling them at guide prices as Vetter prices. He's selling comics, but they're at Vetter prices. It became a word to us in the neighborhood of.
Gotcha.
So if you bought an overpriced comic, you got vetted.
Yep. But I can still. That was Hulk 236, but it was the one hole in my Hulk collection. Never saw the guy. Never saw the kid again.
You made me have a flashback to like watching the dude put out the books and he's sitting there waiting. Yeah, but Magic Mart had a Xerox machine that you put a quarter in to get a copy of beside the magazines and comics. So during the summer, there'd be the dude who comes with all the magazines and his blue bins that fold out. And you can tell we're just getting on his damn nerves and stuff. And he would take his time. So I'd go over to the gaming books, the video game books with the codes and all that stuff. And I'd just be dropping quarters in, Xeroxing all the codes for my Nintendo. Waiting on them. And then there's this, and then the big one, though, is just this one time that I got there and the dude was putting out the books and there's this mom. And this is a Karen before there was a word. But if I remember right, her 2 boys looked like they were like 12 and 10 or 10 and 8. And she had them in damn sailor suits, little sailor hats.
Oh, my God.
And I'm looking at this, me just sitting there looking at this because she's got a comic book. She's going, look at this. Violence, 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 violence. You don't need this. And I'm sitting there thinking, lady, dressing your kids like that, you better let them have some
exposure to violence. So
they're going to be learning violence.
Oh, wow.
Oh, man.
I remember on one of your recent haul videos, Tim, you said that you spent like around $100 or so over the weekend.
I went for it.
And my first thought was like, who are you and what have you done with Tim?
You got a lot of comics for his $100.
Yeah.
I got some good stuff. I got to admit, I had a good time, and I was like, I haven't been to one in forever.
Right.
But Scott can remember that time in Galax or whatever it was, where I spent $15 on Amazing Spider-Man 47. That spread like wildfire throughout the con online within 30 minutes of me doing it. I remember you, Kim, looking at me going, "Who is this man? He is sick. He's got a fever."
Yeah.
We got The Boys, Dear Becky, number 3. This is right. Number 4. Pardon me.
How is that? I heard it's not consistent.
I've liked it. It's okay. Like I said, and I have the same problems with it that I told you about last issue. Was there's three times in this, but they don't tell you. There's the Butcher back when he was with his girlfriend. There's the Butcher post girlfriend. I think she was killed or something. She was like killed before the first series. So there was the Butcher girlfriend, Butcher post girlfriend, and now 2020 with Huey. Huey is basically reading the Butcher's journal. Where is he at the end? There's Huey reading the Butcher's journal about what happened to him, kind of. And the rest of the book is what happened to him. So we get the boys from before Huey was in the boys, before the Butcher was the leader of the boys, and the other guy, Mallory or something, was the leader of the boys. So we get those stories, and we also get a story about, here's the Butcher and his girlfriend, which is before the Butcher with Mallory is the leader, where someone kills his girlfriend in it. Spoiler alert, but it did happen before issue 1 of The Boys in 2008 or something. So it's like there's 3 timelines going in here, and they give you no hint of it. Unless you've read the whole first volume, you won't know there's 3 timelines going on. That's what's really,
I think it was 4 episodes back of Cavern of Chaos where we talked about establishing shots and all that stuff.
Yeah, storytelling. The storytelling, for anyone just picking up this series or this issue, the storytelling is terrible. It's like, oh, come on, you got to let us know. You got to let us know 10 years ago, 12 years. A caption, that's all it would take.
Yeah, there are simple ways to do it.
There's simple ways to do it, but it has become chic and vogue not to do that.
Well, to me, this is what happens when you just do a money grab. I'm convinced that's a money grab because of the TV show. I really am. He told the story, so he's not really pumped up, in my opinion, to tell another story. He told the story fantastically.
It's more of the same.
Yeah,
I enjoy the Russ Braun artwork. The story's okay. It's nothing. Thematically, The Boys Volume 1 is a complete edition kind of thing. It's
one big story in sections. Yeah.
Right. Dear Becky right now, it might go somewhere. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know how it's going to establish itself as its own thing. Or if it's ever going to establish itself.
It's not. I don't think it is. I really don't think it is.
I don't know. I don't have that much faith in Garth Ennis.
Go get Red Rover Charlie. That's the book to get about the dogs in Zombieland trying to get to the coast and survive. Stand By Me with dogs and zombies. It's fantastic.
But I am enjoying the series, and I'll keep on reading it because each issue is a good read. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it.
Well, I don't dig for the news. Like every now and then at work, I might pop up Bleeding Cool just for a laugh. I mean, I'm one of those people. But every now and then I'll open up my phone, have my Google come up, and I'll have headlines from my searches and all that stuff, right? So the positive about this is that The Boys Season 2 that's supposed to be coming out soon, it's supposedly getting better reviews than the first season, which was fantastic. Yeah, and they got a season 3 coming, and they got Dean from Supernatural playing the Captain America dude that pisses his pants and begs to be in the 7. And I'm like, oh my God, are they going to do it? Are they going to go for it?
Should we take a moment and look at some comments we got here? People saying hello to us. Pope Cerebrus the First is here.
I'm just going to back all the way up. Of course, we have Toki Deathhammer. He was the first one here, people. He was the first one here. Toki Deathhammer, John Byrne, while I was waking up for a fight.
Yeah.
John Byrne is the best Fantastic Four artist and writer.
I just don't think there's been a ton of good Fantastic Fours.
There's 2 runs, Kirby and Lee.
Yeah.
And Burns, and then sporadically in between there, you'll get some good stories.
Walt
Simonson had a decent run.
Yeah, Walt Simonson had a couple of ups and downs because the one where they fight the robot Stalin from another dimension is kind of iffy.
Because he had a run before Burns where he was just the artist,
right?
And then he had a run in the '90s when he was the writer. Correct?
Yes.
Front to the past and back to the future. That was the advertisement.
In the late 70s, Byrne penciled Marv Wolfman's run.
Yeah.
Right.
And then he came back in the early 80s and did a full run as writer and editor. As writer and artist.
I had the run right over here. I'm not going to go get it, but it's right there.
There was some decent early George Perez stuff.
Yeah.
That was before Byrne.
Yep.
Right, 160s, 170s. So, and I also like when I first started picking up the Fantastic Four. Who was drawing? It was Keith Pollard or somebody. The run up to issue 200.
It
was okay.
It was fun. High Evolutionary, Impossible Man. They were sort of bringing in a rotation of the older.
It was decent stuff, but not a lot of classic long runs in Fantastic Four.
I would love to see what Darwin Cook could have done on the Fantastic Four.
Right.
Darwin Cook, and I'm also one of those guys I still wish Alan Moore had gotten hold of Fantastic Four one time.
That would be interesting. I never thought about that, but yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah. He's somebody that could make it feel like the Fantastic Four, probably do that pop 60 stuff and still blow your mind, you know. Here we go. Hold on.
Pope Cerebus put out a haul this week that I was watching. He gets some deep indie books too. Shudder is a cool. Listen, I read the first issue of Shudder and kind of liked it, but it was at a time when there was a lot of good books out, so I never continued with it.
Always good to see Mr. Gretzky there.
Yep.
Mastodon Mind the Comics is here. He likes this later schedule.
Okay.
And then we got what's this? I wonder what we were talking about. Issues 9. Oh, Machine Man, I bet. Machine Man. Yep. Machine Man. Yeah.
I like his avatar.
Pope Cerebus the First. Is this 2 weeks in a row he's been here, or was he here before? Yeah.
He just put out a haul, and he gets some indie books that I've never seen. And I think he's also one of those, just in watching his hauls, he's one of those collectors who goes to like 3 or 4 different stores and doesn't have a pull list. So it's like he's always hunting for books.
And Pope is one of the guys that he's been around for a while. So you check out his channel, man. Mastodon, Pope, what we got here?
And I also saw the latest Cerebus in Hell on his pull list that didn't come into my shop. I was like, hey, where's my copy of that?
We got here. Yeah. Ginseng Roots, Bug Bites, Year Zero, Grit Number 2, Vlad Dracul. And I didn't see a single issue in half the stores, so they didn't even order it.
Oh, yeah. There were stacks and stacks of Empires. Oh, of course.
We'll be talking about the 3 Jokers. 2 of us have read it.
Well, that's why you need a pull list. I would not have 3/4 of the comics I have without a pull list.
Yeah.
Because,
and if it's not Marvel and DC, you want those books, you got to order them first.
Yeah.
Gretzky loves Walt.
Okay, moving on. I could go on and say things, but I'm not.
Yeah, the Amicable Spider Bark. That's the one I did not get this week. Sometimes Cerebus in Hell comes in late to my shop. You never know. So hopefully I'll get it this upcoming week.
That one offended some people. Oh no, Bleeding Cool. Bleeding Cool kills me. They act like they're like we're all against Mr. Sim, but what they're doing is they're advertising for. This is time for. I'm like, is this as fake as wrestling? Sometimes nobody would have known about the book unless you hit the article. You know.
That's why those what their names call their channel Cartoonist Kayfabe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Bring you behind the kayfabe wall.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't even know that kayfabe was a wrestling term until I looked it up and found out what it actually meant.
I only knew it because I have wrestling friends who mentioned it before. Yeah. I don't remember when or where I learned it.
I heard the term in the 80s, probably middle school, but you didn't know what it was. It was like carny talk. You would know. You would hear some terms here and there, but you didn't know what they meant.
So
I never heard of Hey. Yeah. But speaking of Carney talk, do the rest of you guys want to know if Hey Rube is really Carney talk? Because I've always wanted. Those early Spider-Mans and Fantastic Fours with the ringmaster and his Carnival of Crime. Someone was always yelling, "Hey Rube!" And then Stan Lee would put a little editor's note. This is how you call for help in Carnival talk or something like that. I always wanted to know if that was real or something Stan just made up.
As real as gamma rays turning you into a green monster, man.
Hey Rube. The last comic I got.
But there was a thing about Stan Lee doing stories in the circus, because during Cap's Cookie Quartet, Quicksilver decides he's going to leave the Avengers because he wants to join the circus. I thought Quicksilver was too old to run away and join the circus.
Stan Lee had that. He must have liked circuses, or else
he had that kind of Circus Barker kind of projection. Yeah.
Here is Lock and Key. Was the title is in this little tiny type up top. Impale Battalion Go.
Okay.
And this is the first actual issue I have of Lock and Key. I bought the original series all in the hardcovers. So I didn't buy any individual issues. So this one came out this way, and they've put out individual issues since the original series ended a few years ago. Yeah. But I think they've also put out stuff since then, but I haven't bought any of it. So I'm like, you know what? I saw this on the stands. I said, I'm going to put it on my pull list just so I can read it in issues. And this is Lock and Key, but it takes place in World War I. So it's the family in the Key house in World War I.
Yeah.
And the little kid who's 14 wants to go off to war. So he's tricking his father into getting him keys so he can go off to war.
Yeah, I have all these in hardback, and the last thing I bought was Lock and Key Heaven and Earth. And I think this is like 3 or 4 years ago. Give me a year. 2017, 3 years ago. I am getting the Lock and Key Sandman book that's coming out, and I'm really hoping I don't
about that.
I'm really hoping I don't regret it. So yeah,
I'm never a fan of universe crossovers like that.
Well, the Sandman, he went through different realms. He went to hell. Different dimensions. He's gone all over space. That's why it's rich.
This is the last one I got. Lock and Key Alpha and Omega, and this was the end of the Lock and Key storyline, the original Lock and Key storyline. I think the stuff that's come after it came at different times, but I bought them all in these volumes, so I didn't have any issues of it.
Well, I've always said about Lock and Key, I remember picking an issue two up like in 2008, 10, whenever it first came out, but you couldn't find them. People were buying them. That was the deal.
I never saw it in the state. My comic shop didn't get it.
So I had a few random ones, but when I got the first one somehow in hardback, I wouldn't have continued with it. But I had the Lock and Key. I had the first one and like the fifth one. The thing that's great about Lock and Key is when you read all 6 volumes, if that's what it is, each one actually gets better. This is one of those series that actually builds up, world builds, introduces characters, and then by the end of it, you're just sort of like wanting to jump around the room with them. You're like,
so it's kind of like Sandman in that regard.
Quality, yes, different, completely different though.
In terms of it gets better as it goes along.
Yes, it actually does. It builds on itself, and it's just night and day. When I went from volume 1 and went ahead and read volume 4 or 5, whatever it was, night and day, quality wise, night and day.
Gotcha.
Unlike The Boys, I didn't like the Lock and Key TV show that much. It was just okay.
I made it through 3 episodes when they messed up the head key, and you walked down into a chest. I was out. I'm like, they were ruining this.
It was very much more like a teen drama than anything else. It was okay, but
they took the horror out and went big on the fantasy, and they messed up the whole tone. I can go on and on. It's real critiques. It's not just I hate that you adapted my book.
It's more like a CW teen drama than the comic is all it is.
They ruined the whole tone. Without that tone, that horror tone with the
I made it through it, but it wasn't my favorite. But it's like Like the Umbrella Academy, I couldn't even make it through. I made it three or four episodes through, and it's not like it was terrible. Like what the Umbrella Academy did is the first 5 to 10 minutes they gave you something really interesting. Then there was 35 minutes of boredom, and then the last 5 minutes was interesting. So I was like, oh my god.
When I saw
that 35 minutes of boredom.
Okay, Jared Way wrote those. When I saw My Chemical Romance's video, I'm Not Okay, or whatever it was back in the early 2000s, I said these guys I had a feeling he'd seen some stuff by the time Helena. I mean, I can name the word. I was digging his band. I'm like, these guys have the potential to be the next Who. Little did I know that by the time Umbrella Academy came out and stuff, I couldn't even read it. I made it through 3 pages.
I never tried to read any of the issues. I just checked out the show.
Yeah, but do you find people do? I get this a lot. I really do. Anytime there's a bunch of new shows or something that comes on, it blows people's minds when I tell them I've never watched this and I've never watched this.
I never watch anything.
Yeah,
I hate Lost.
Rarely watch anything superhero related.
I hate Lost, and I hate the zombie thing.
Yeah,
I can't even remember the name. I just call it the zombie thing.
Walking Dead. I watched the first couple of seasons of Walking Dead, and then I didn't like that. In the end, I had to stop watching the Walking Dead because I was like, I found it depressing. And I was starting to find it depressing that the zombie apocalypse was more interesting than my life.
Right.
So I'm like, I started finding myself envious of these. I mean, they're having an interesting time.
I made it through 3 seasons. The first one, they nailed it. I thought it was awesome. It felt like a Romero movie that kept going. Second one, they were on that damn farm for too long. So I hung around for the third one, and I was out after that. But I saw an episode where Michonne, whenever she would go somewhere, she started getting comic books for the kid. I was like,
but in the end, since I was a Walking Dead fan of the comic, I was like, you know what, the comic's enough for me. I don't need the TV show.
Yeah.
And Lost, I actually watched all of. Well, I used to have it on a lot of the time. I have it on as a background show sometimes. And any individual episode was pretty good. But I knew it wasn't going to make sense. I knew they weren't going to pull it all together in the end, especially since one of my friends knew the head writer on Lost and knew that they were making it up as they went along. They didn't have it.
It's not necessarily bad.
Speaking of Danny Lindoff of Lost or whatever, I think it's the same dude. That's his name. I don't know if we're talking about Pope is bringing up the Watchmen HBO show or the movie, but the HBO show took me out because they should not have advertised that as a direct sequel to the comic. That took me out.
I haven't watched it yet. I don't know if I'll ever watch it. Everybody says it's real good, but I'm kind of like,
I'm in the same boat that Jared's in there. It's like part of me wants to watch it, and the bigger part doesn't.
You know what it is? I've heard this is the best description I heard for licensed stuff. For stuff like a Watchmen TV show, or like, a Buffy the Vampire Slayer comic, is that you like the original thing so much that they do another sort of licensed version of it in another media, and you really just kind of want more of that original thing. But it's never going to be. It's always a lesser version of the original thing, whether it's good or not. It's always
there are
a
exceptions.
lesser version of the original.
No, there are exceptions. The Space Ghost miniseries about 15 years ago was very, very good.
Loved it. Space Western.
There's exceptions to everything, but most of the time it's an inferior version.
I remember I was a fan of the Transformers. I liked the Transformers comic, but they, of course, it was not as good as the cartoon. But it's only way down the line, and it's only when Titan Books did a series of reprints with the original Marvel issues that I finally got to read the good stuff, which is way down at the end.
Yeah.
Because the majority is, here's a new robot, because they always have to bring in new robots because since the toy is coming out, and it's Jose Delbo artwork, and they usually pull all those old guys. And just to give them a job in those licensed comics.
But if we were living in a perfect world, there'd be a monthly Space Ghost book that was done by Steve Rude.
Yes. Now, I do want to say the Doom Patrol show, they might have 2 week episodes. I think that's the best thing DC's put out in about 3 or 4 years. TV show.
Yeah, I haven't been able to muster up the interest to even check it out. So, but I hear I have a friend who's a huge Doom Patrol fan who loves it.
They have pulled stuff out of that Grant Morrison run and a little bit out of the Arnold Drake run and even a little bit out of the 70s Cooperberg run there that I can't believe I'm seeing. They get it. They had one. They ended the street episode was weak, but I think it was a budget thing. I don't know.
I'll watch it if it's on basic cable around here. Otherwise, I don't bother looking for it or subscribing to the service or anything. Mm-hmm. The TV shows that I've been watching for the last decade, were Hawaii Five-0 and NCIS Los Angeles.
Oh,
that's what I wanted to watch.
You're a fan of those are 2 I don't watch. I kind of like police procedurals in general, though. Actually,
it's not a police procedural. It's
I don't like police procedurals as much as I like quirky detective shows. So those ones are a little too straightforward.
I can see that.
Hawaii Five-0 is more quirky detective than police procedural because it's about the personalities.
Right.
But it's made for TV. Yeah.
My sound clicked or something. What was the police procedural you're talking about?
Hawaii Five-0 is not a police procedural.
Hawaii Five-0, yeah.
Well, it is, but it's also a quirky detective show. It's like a police procedural doesn't have to be a strict procedural.
Those guys are always jumping from rooftops over moving cars, firing military grade automatic weapons. What kind of police force is that?
They don't necessarily follow exact, but that's what a police procedural is. That's
those are that's overdone. I mean, the ones that are set in New York, they're not as exaggerated.
The only police procedural that is actually follows procedural is the Law and Order shows, probably.
Barney Miller.
No.
Barney Miller.
Barney Miller.
And NCIS Los Angeles are quirky spies.
I do want to check out Hawaii Five-0, and then I found out that I can't remember the actor's last name, but his first name's Tim. The only reason I remember it, but he was on The Mentalist, right? And on The Mentalist, he was doing Dragnet. Like somebody would say something to him, and he would talk with that just the facts talk.
Oh yeah,
and he never missed a beat. He was like, you couldn't slip a piece of paper before him saying something. The
Mentalist I watched, that was a quirky detective show. See, in order to qualify as a quirky detective show, the main detective needs a gimmick. And the Mentalist gimmick, Columbo was the original quirky detective show, and his gimmick was that
discovered Columbo? I had 2 people on Facebook said they just discovered Columbo. Were you?
Yeah.
Well.
I didn't watch The Mentalist, but I used to watch the Numbers.
Numbers was another quirky detective show. The gimmick was he was a mathematician. That was his quirk.
I haven't watched a detective show in probably 20 years or more.
You're too busy reading Guitar magazine.
Evidently.
Speaking of movies,
they don't make TV shows about guitars.
Not yet.
All you need is kill.
That's the third time this has come up. That is the third time that book has come up this week.
Well, I mentioned this last time.
Yeah, we talked about it last week.
Yeah,
I mentioned that I was getting it, but I actually got it. I think last Saturday it came, and I actually read it twice. This is as I mentioned last week. I watched the Tom Cruise movie Edge of Tomorrow, which I enjoyed, a time loop sci-fi movie. And one of my friends on Facebook said the manga on that is really good. So originally it was a YA novel in Japan. Then it became a comic, a manga. And then they made the Tom Cruise movie out of it. And I actually liked the ending of this better than the movie. Slightly a different ending. And it also, like the Tom Cruise movie took place in Europe. This takes place in Japan. And it's sort of the same thing. It's this soldier. It's sort of a sci-fi thing when they actually don't know if they're where they came from. These aliens. They call them mimics. They're just these monsters that have. Here's one of them. They look like tentacle monsters in the movie, but this is what they look like here. And they showed up and they've been conquering Earth. And this one guy, our lead character, this guy right here, finds himself in a time loop. So he wakes up each morning the day before the battle. And he's like this rookie soldier. And he doesn't know what's happening, of course, at first. So
that book, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, he's waiting, and he finally figures out he's in a time loop, and he's trying to figure out how to become a better soldier to help win the battle. And halfway through, he discovers I think it was loop 158. There it is. At loop 150, and in front, he would write the loop. He started writing the number of the loop down on the back of his hand in Sharpie.
That's for the reader to like let them know what's going on.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Sort of like saying, and then like I said, right about this part, there's this one character who's called the Full Metal Bitch. She's an American with special forces who's been the only one who's been able to fight these monsters and win. And at the end of loop 158, she says, "How many loops has that been for you?" No, he discovers that there's someone else who's been using time. So then the rest of the book was about the two of them trying to figure out how to defeat these aliens in battle as they're caught in this time loop. So it's really, really well done. The only thing that wasn't well done in it, and I actually posted this on Facebook where I was talking to some of my friends, is I said something like, the only thing I didn't like was the battle scenes. I find the battle scenes in Japanese comics a lot to be a confusing mess.
They can be, depending on who the creator is.
And my friend who has been reading manga his whole life and said that became like a stylistic thing in the 90s in manga. And it's still with us today in some of the stuff. He's like, it didn't really appear in manga from the 40s to the 90s.
Yeah, but it's contaminating superhero comics because now you can't follow a battle scene in the U.S. comics. They draw like it's the manga and you understand the damn thing that's going on.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it happened in Japanese comics first, and then American comics copied it.
Yeah.
I don't know where it originally came from, but it's like the whole rest of the book was really involving. When I got to a battle scene, I was just like flip, 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 because it's just a mess. It's not like, a Frank Miller Daredevil fight where you can feel the punches.
Yeah. Gotcha. And it's funny because Frank Miller used to copy manga.
Yeah, yeah. Like my friend Bunch said, this didn't happen until the 90s. So I'm sure they were copying some American stuff too, where I'm not, because there were nonsensical fight scenes in the 90s in American comics too. Mm-hmm. And I know in the 90s, American comics started copying manga with all their speed lines and motion stuff.
I bet that started in Dragon Ball.
Yeah, I know it did. My friend, who is a big Fist of the North Star fan, said, which I think was the 80s, said something about even when Fist of the North Star, where so many of the fight scenes were just fists and motion lines, you could tell what was going on all the time.
Right.
But like with this, like here, I don't know what's going on in most of this. It's just kind of a mess.
I wonder, I could be wrong, but I wonder if it would make more sense for the fight scenes and how they're structured and how easy they are to follow if that was in color versus if it was in black and white.
It would in one way. What was really weird is at certain points in this book, color became very important. And because thematically, it became important. But there was no color in the book. Like the Full Metal Bitch, Rita Vertowski. They wore this kind of armor in here, this battle armor. Let me see if it's at the beginning. The only color stuff is at the very beginning. They have a couple of color covers. There's the battle armor, and Rita's was red. And she wanted, and it became important thematically that her armor was red because she wanted her fellow soldiers to be able to see her. Right. Because she was so good at fighting, because she'd been through so many time loops, that she wanted her. It became inspirational for her fellow soldiers to see her in the red armor. And he became so good at fighting, sort of at the very end of the book, a little bit of a spoiler, but not much of one. He eventually decided his armor should be blue, bright blue, so he could be seen.
Right.
But those two things were important thematically in the whole overall story.
Right.
Except there was no color in the book.
Right.
So I was like, it reminded me of, I have to tell you, one of the jobs I once got called in to do at Marvel was, do you remember, who did it? In like 2003, 2004, there was a War Machine book. It was done sort of like a manga, and it was done in black and white. I forget who the writer and artist were, but they were doing it sort of like this, in that it was War Machine, but they were kind of like mechs. So there was a bunch of different guys in different armors fighting, except for some reason, I guess it was a manga style thing. They did it in black and white. The problem was nobody could tell the different armors apart because it was all in black and white. Mm-hmm. So the job I had to do, they came in and to get it ready for the trade, and the name of the trade was War Machine something. I had to go in, and you know how military uniforms sometimes have the soldier's last name on a tag?
Right.
I had to do that on all the armor.
Oh boy!
So I had to put everybody's name on their shoulder, on a shoulder tag on the armor, so people could tell one guy from the next.
Right.
That was my actual job I spent a week doing that for that particular trade, because like I said, no one. So if you were to read the original comics, they'd have no name tags on them. And if you read the trade, they'd have name tags on them.
This is one of the times I wished I had interrupted you, because I was about to mention when I was like about 7. Well, no, when I was like 4, I colored some Fantastic Four covers. The first appearance of Adam Warlock with the cocoon, because it freaked me out. It was an all white color. But there was another black and white magazine where I went through and I colored so I would know who people were. Then I went by and started writing their name on them with an ink pen. I'm like, you got paid for it.
Yeah.
I want to point out two. This is totally self-serving. I want to point out 2 comments here.
Okay.
They mentioned Lone Wolf and Cub. That'll get me every time.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Good battle scenes there.
And then somebody, let me see if I can find it. Somebody has a cardboard cutout of Elvira and Strodium Dog. Matthew Rasco, of course. Now, let me tell you something. The first time I got some books of Strodium Dog might have been like 2014, and I hadn't read them yet. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, it looks like a Judge Dredd ripoff, or something like that. Oh, my God. I came back with an apology. I'm just saying, I had to. Well, it may have been my first in one of the very few apologies I ever did. But I can't believe you got paid for something I did when I was like 7. All right.
That's because I did it in Photoshop. So, that's sophisticated.
Yeah.
What, Paolo? Are you ready?
Ooh.
That's Joker for the 40s. Okay. That's the segue. You guys haven't read the 3 Jokers, have you?
Nope.
Let me do a rant real quick for a minute here, but I think it was Wednesday around lunchtime. I jumped on Bleeding Cool. They already had an article up. They already read it. And this is like around 11 or 12 on a Wednesday. They already had the article read. They probably had a advanced copy and had the article ready to go because they had like panels and all this stuff and dissected it the day the book came out. I got home, looked on a Facebook group and could see all this stuff, and all these people were loving it because they all got up apparently at 9 and 10 o'clock in the morning and read the book, and they posted the Bleeding Cool article to say they loved it. So don't believe the hype. People, I don't know if they're just trying to look cool and be part of their friends. Half the people that said they liked it didn't read the damn thing. There's no way. But, that ran all over me. That's what I was like, am I going to do it? Am I really actually going to do a video finally? But,
yeah, you can't get me to read a Joker story. I'm just so sick of the Joker.
I agree with you. I've had Joker burnout for a while.
Yeah, and I've had Joker burnout for 20 years. I just can't. First of all, I don't get him. What's the Joker's skill set? What does the Joker bring to the table?
He's chaos. I totally get the Joker. I mean, I'm the opposite end of this, but this book here, we're going to agree. Okay, for now.
Joker may be chaos, but he's got no skill set. All Batman has to do is punch. Batman can take down 1,000 screaming Martians, all with superpowers, and he can't take out one guy dressed like a clown. I'm like,
that's why I always hated about team superhero books. Yeah. Is for whatever reason you'd have one villain that in their main nemesis could take him out, but he shows up with like 18 other superheroes, and he can take them out all at once. Like this makes no sense.
Like especially Batman.
Well, I'll tell you what, Scott, we're going to revisit that. That's a great topic. But Jared, this book is for you, for what you have pointed out. Okay.
Do they actually give the Joker a skill set?
Oh, it's not so much. Well,
okay. Are they named Mo, Larry, and Curly?
Okay, spoiler alert. Let's just get the spoiler alert out, man. Pallet,
you can spoil it. We're not going to read it.
You jump out. Well, there's people watching. Pallet, you jump in anytime. But the thing about it is okay, I don't even know where to start. The skill set you're talking about, there's supposed to be 3 separate Jokers that nobody in the world ever realized were 3 separate people because they all had that same skill set you're saying he doesn't have. Okay. But the biggest thing is that it opens up, there's 3 crimes, 3 Jokers. They're all the Commissioner Gordon and all of them are at Ace Chemicals, and Batman's showing up, and the Red Hood is in an ambulance, and Batgirl pops up out of the blue, and all this stuff, right? So you get all your characters, right? But there's a crime spree going on, and they're all like, "Well, by God, how could all 3 Jokers be doing this?" Like Batman forgot he sat in the Mobius chair 4 years ago, and found out there was 3 Jokers. Then they're at Ace Chemicals. You get the idea that a decade's gone by, right? And they still have the damn vats out there with the chemical that made the Joker.
Of course.
Nobody ever works there. They never did this stuff. And Batman knows so much about the vats that there's 3 dead bodies there, and they're all Jokerized. And we get 3 panels where Batman is like, we'll never know who the Joker is because this chemical takes away your fingerprints, changes your DNA, and makes you smile, and you can't even do dental records. And I'm like, a damn bat computer from 1968 could put your fucking. I watched Bones. I know what they can do. All right, I watched Bones, that police procedural show. I know what they can do. They can put a skull back together from dust. So right away, I'm like, you're telling me this stuff will take away your fingerprints, but doesn't. Okay, the logic. Okay, comic books.
The logic is as dumb as it gets.
Right. So there's a couple of things that happen. You actually see the 3 Jokers at a damn cabin in the woods, and he walks out.
They don't even look alike.
They don't even look alike to fool anybody. That's what killed me. They don't look alike at all to where you'd be like, oh, that's a different. No, like Batman can't figure it out, and Batman isn't on his game because they capture one Joker, right? And the Red Hood is there. The Red Hood, they've rewritten it where he didn't die. Joker didn't take him to the brim of death. He just was like, they kind of gave the idea that it was sexual a little bit if you read into it. Joker says the best thing about beating you with the crowbar, Jason, is when you looked up and said, I'll be your Robin. And I was like, what the hell? Batman, he has Batgirl there who's got crippled by the Joker. He's got the Red Hood there, and who's beat him to death. And for some reason, the Batman leaves them alone at an aquarium and decides to go after another Joker and says, watch him. Left them both there. So Jason Todd sits there and pulls out a gun, goes to shoot the Joker. Batgirl misses with a batarang, which I am going to give Jeff Johns credit because he had Jason Todd said, you didn't want the Joker dead? When was the last time you missed with a batarang? And he shoots him, and then he goes, you know what? I hope that was the right Joker I just shot. And I'm sitting here like, this is shit. I'm like, Batman is dumbed down, and this is an excuse to do terrible things to the Joker for shot because we'll never really see it. And I'm like,
there's always another Joker.
Yeah, they've got my money. I pre-ordered all 3 of them. But this is the second time, Doomsday Clock, and now this, where Jeff Johns just needs to be Jeff Johns. Stop trying to be Alan Moore. You're not Alan Moore. It's horrible. This is supposed to be a sequel.
Especially because it's quite clear that Jeff Johns told Jason Fabok, draw this like it's Watchmen. And it's not just the 9-panel grid. Yeah. You can see the cross-hatching in the faces. is made to make the characters look like they're in Watchmen. Also, the blood splatters. It's Dave Gibbons.
Yeah.
But then halfway throughout the book, because this took forever to draw, the guy starts drawing like Tom Grummett.
I wouldn't say Grummett, but it changed. I'll tell you what, Jason.
Oh, it's definitely Tom Grummett. I mean, Jason looks like Superboy.
Yeah. The artist, I'm going to say the artist is an innocent bystander. Okay. He had a job to do.
And it is actually quite good. He's very good at drawing action, and he's got great continuity between panels, which is something that is exceedingly rare. And they finally an artist that you can remember. Jerry, you're always complaining, I don't know who the artists are. Well, here's one. Just don't let him work with Jeff Johns.
And the funny thing too is Joker's supposed to be anarchy and chaos, and nothing says anarchy and chaos like three Jokers working together, so you don't even know.
Yes, that's actually right. Exactly. And you get to see the first Joker. They made him look a little bit older, and he's methodical, sitting at a table, and they're planning to make another Joker, I think. And one of them, he says, this guy, that guy over there's got something about he's able to find talent. To be, and I thought that was like a reference to Harley Quinn. So I was sort of wondering, is this the guy that made Harley Quinn? Is a joke?
Yeah.
I don't.
The only reason I can see the Jokers working together is maybe they think it's funny, because they will do it if it's funny. I don't get the joke yet.
This whole thing just reminds me of like a script that would have been rejected for Austin Powers.
See, here's the deal. I feel like this story has been done before, but not in comics. Now, there was I'm going way back. There's a Teen Titans comic book, Marv Wolf and George Perez in the early 80s, where it was a character named Trident. And all the Teen Titans were talking about, it's almost like we all fought a different guy, and they found out there was 3 Tridents.
Oh, there's a long history of body doubles in comics. So.
Yeah. Well, but I feel like this is from a book or a novel. This sounds so familiar, and I did a Google search. Like, am I imagining things? Maybe I'm thinking Zorro the Gay Blade from 1981, where he kept changing costumes.
I think I remember. I think I remember an old science fiction novel.
Oh, there's a long history of.
But I remember reading it.
Body doubles to science fiction,
because the guy finds out he's a clone of his enemy. And that there are more clones of him waiting to be activated, and it's not null A, but I think it's something quite. No, it's not null A.
If we find out the third Joker is really a spider clone, that'll be something.
Or he's a replicant.
And it still is that they've done it again. They've gotten derivative, and they took away the uniqueness. They've I forgot the word, saturated. That's not the word.
Yeah. Well, I think that of all means Dream Comics. I mean, Marvel and DC. I've complained about that for years. There's so many different. Everybody's got a family. There's a Spider family. There's a Wolverine family. There's a Hulk family. So there's just. To me, it's just like, but it's all for marketing. Like I said, you might not be able to sell a Spider-Gwen comic, but you can sell Spider-Gwen backpacks to a lot of little girls.
Somebody told me they had to change Spider-Gwen's name to Ghost Spider now.
Oh yeah, they did. Well, Spider-Gwen was never her official name. We just comic fans called her that.
Yeah. Okay.
And her official name is Ghost Spider, I think.
Yeah,
but nobody calls her that, so
no.
It's Spider-Gwen.
Because Spider-Gwen is catchy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't make sense to people outside comics.
Yeah.
Right. No, but people outside comics are not going to pay attention to a clearly derivative female version of Spider-Man with a very complicated backstory.
But they are if you put it on a backpack. That's what it is.
Here's the deal.
All this stuff is to sell little girls backpacks and such.
Yeah.
Sure.
But with the Joker, now there's been tons of Joker stories and movies and all this stuff like that. And he's never really had that story where you're like, it made you angry. It was so bad. So it blows my mind that they've come out with the 3 Jokers.
I wouldn't know. I haven't read a story in Joker.
Well, this is the thing. This is the first time I've seen a Joker story that's sort of an event that you read it and you're like, they really messed up the Joker for the first time ever. Like, I mean, I'm even going back to where he supposedly cut his own face off. You know what I mean?
But to me, the Joker was born messed up. So I've never in my life been a Joker fan. Matter of fact, I've avoided most Joker stories. I just think I'm the opposite of everybody else who loves him. I just think he's terrible.
Yeah, the only time I really liked the Joker was when Mark Hamill was doing him in the animated series.
Yeah, I think somebody said that in a moment. The Joker is like Darkseid. You can't use him very often. That's part of his allure. Once you have a lot of Joker come out, you're sick of him. He goes away for a while, using sparingly.
The problem to me is he has no skill set. Everybody's like, oh no, the Joker's coming. Oh no, the Joker's coming. Joker shows up. Batman just has to punch him in the face, and the story's over. But somehow, Batman never gets to punch him in the face.
Well, Red Hood made your dream come true. He finally pulled a gun and shot him. That's what I'm getting at. I'm like, this is for you, Jared. Of all things, you may be the one to like it.
To get a gun, he just has to punch him in the face. Like I said, that has always been my problem with the Joker and in comics in general is the one thing we've always been good at in the real world here as human beings is locking people up. Matter of fact, we're too good at it. We lock someone up, they stay locked up in general. But somehow in the superhero world, you can't lock someone up.
Well, here's the deal. You know,
They're too important as intellectual property, so they always get out. And it's always kind of like, oh, the Joker's escaped again.
Well, one of the things about the Joker that makes him work for a lot of people, in my opinion, is exactly what you're saying. He hasn't been shoehorned into a skill set. Right. That makes it to where you can do a lot more with him.
People can read into. Well, first of all, he's a good visual. People like the idea of chaos. He's a good visual. He's a walking plot device because he can do. You can basically have the Joker do anything.
He's kind of like Bunny in that regard.
Say the Joker did it.
Grant Morrison explained him back in his run back in the 2000s, and I'm going by memory here, but he explained that the thing with the Joker is when he had those moments of clarity, he's so crazy they can't define what the crazy is. It doesn't fit, and it's a super sanity.
That's what I said. That's what I've always said about the Joker too. Crazy isn't a superpower. Crazy, if you ever known someone who's actually crazy, it is a detriment to their lives.
All right, I want to go.
This reminds me of why
because they're crazy. With somehow the Joker becomes a superpower, and it's like,
all right.
This reminds me of why everybody was always afraid of Charles Manson. If you ever looked at him, he's like 5'3" and 102 pounds. You could pick him up and break him in half.
Well, I'm about to go to work now. I'm going to go to work here a little bit. But there's a thing called personality disorders. A pill won't do it. There's all kinds of categories for them. But in nature, we still have that thing where we know to stay away from people because they enter a room and you feel uneasy. And when I say that to people, I could go on and explain it better. Right. But have you ever been around somebody that just gave you the heebie-jeebies like Manson and all that stuff? That's because they have a personality disorder. Nature has a way of telling you to stay the fuck away. That's the Joker. Joker creates chaos. You know somebody's going to die, and he just puts that out somehow, like in the real world.
And the minute they step out of line, we lock them up.
Right.
And like I said, here we're in the real world, we're really good at locking people up. We may not be able to fly. We may not be able to shoot blasts out of our hands. We may not have super strength, but we can lock people up and throw away the key with the best of them.
Yeah.
So that's why it's always like when you see the Joker breaking out yet again, it's always like, come on, the one thing we can do in the real world, they can't do in the fantasy world.
All right.
Well, the thing about I could go on and on about the Joker. I find him fascinating because it's one of those things you can't shoehorn him in, and that's the match part of the match with him. You never know what's going to happen.
I think you can't shoehorn him in because of bad writing,
such as the three Jokers. The three Jokers.
We're going to have to change the tagline of the Batman to world's greatest detective with the world's worst writing.
Yeah, but like I said, when it comes to the Joker, if you read the Batman is the world's greatest detective. He takes out all these guys bigger and stronger than him. And the Joker, who he's actually bigger and stronger than, he can't take it.
Right. Yeah.
You know what? I think the other thing is, Yeah, I think the other thing is
I've only seen a physically imposing Joker once, and it was one of the Batman Punisher crossovers, drawn by John Romita Jr. because it makes everybody big and imposing.
Right.
Why they stuck him on Superman instead of Batman still blows my mind. But anyway, not to digress. But the thing about it is, but we have to remember is the Joker was made to be a Batman villain. He's the exact opposite of Batman. Right. So to really appreciate the Joker, you still have to put him beside of the Batman.
Bloody, bloody, bloody. He's the opposite Batman. Bloody, bloody, bloody. I've heard that so much. It's coming out my ears, and I go, Batman, all Batman has to do is punch him in the face, and the story's over. The Joker has no skill set.
You see,
I would actually like to see a story where that happens.
Batman's not allowed to just punch him in the face.
I still have like, here we go again with Batman, The Dark Knight Returns. It explains their relationship a little bit.
It does not explain their relationship. It explains bad writing. Every single villain Batman faces,
Dark Knight Returns, Batman
punches in the face. That's how Batman defeats people. He outsmarts them or punches them in the face. He's smarter than the Joker. He's stronger than the Joker. He even goes up. The whole idea of Batman is he goes up against guys bigger and stronger than him, and he punches them in the face and wins. The guy who's smaller and dumber than him, he can't punch in the face and win. What is that?
Wait a minute. Joker. Is the Joker smarter than Batman?
No. He's
No.
never got a plan.
I don't know.
He's got a plan that always fails.
Well, not in the Killing Joke, and one of the Jokers here is the one from the Killing Joke. The thing is, the Killing Joke shows how you actually handle Batman, how you actually handle the Joker, because most people believe that in the end, Batman kills the Joker.
But also,
the Killing Joke.
The reason in order for the Killing Joke to work, as I've said before, you have to ignore the rules of Batman, because one of the rules of Batman is people always say Batman doesn't have superpowers, but he does. You can't kill Batman with a gun. You can't kill, and that extends to the Batman family. If Batman was real and those henchmen had guns, they'd just shoot him dead. But in the Batman world, and when you read a Batman story, you have to accept that. You have to accept that Batman can go up against 6 armed opponents and defeat them all. That's what we accept when we read a Batman story. And the Killing Joke, he walks up and shoots Barbara Gordon with a gun. It's like, oh, it's that easy? Why didn't you just shoot Batman with a gun all these years? Because you can't. He had to break that Batman rule in order to make his story work. Which is why I don't like the Killing Joke, because if you're going to ignore the Batman rules in a Batman story, why make a Batman story?
The joke, I don't know. I'm trying to think of. I'm listening to what you're saying. The thing with the Joker is that he lives in Batman's head. He's already won the psychological war, and that is a part of war, getting in people's heads, scaring them.
Part of Batman's character is he's the most psychologically tough guy out there. That's why he's able to defeat opponents bigger and stronger.
He's a detective who can't figure out the Joker.
I know, because of bad writing, not because of any character.
Jeff Johns made a bad writing.
The idea that there is a character flaw of Batman, I find to be just bad writing.
So wait a minute. The thing is what I'm trying to say is that here's Batman, the great detective. He can't even figure out who the Joker is. It's the mystery he can't solve. It's driving him nuts.
It's because of bad writing.
That's because of bad writing. He should be the whole character of Batman is he can figure out every mystery.
In the 70s and 80s,
mystery is because the writer has decided he can't figure out this mystery in order to make the Joker character work, because otherwise Batman would just punch him in the face.
Right. What I would like to see, and this will never happen in modern comics, but I would like to see a Batman universe set in its own pocket universe without ties to the rest of the DC universe, where he operates on a street level doing detective-related stories.
Yeah.
No Robin.
Well, here's the deal with the Joker. The Joker never really wants to kill Batman. It's his toy. He needs the Batman. That's why he goes after Robin. That's why he goes after Batgirl. That's why he gives him a mystery.
Once again, if any other character did that, Batman would find a way to punch him in the face and defeat him. That's the whole that's every Batman story. Except when the Joker's in there, all of a sudden we're supposed to believe a whole different set of rules exist.
See, I can understand your visceral about this. I can understand your visceral about this because this is how I feel about the idea of Batman beating Superman. Okay, I mean, I'm not going to like deflect and go that way, but I understand the visceral, man. I just want to acknowledge that when Batman and Superman fight, I'm like, there's no fight. I'm picking that up. Your idea is that Batman should just be able to walk over there and knock him out. It's over.
The Joker is not formidable in any way is the problem. He's a plot device. He's not a character.
See, that's just it. I've seen other books where other heroes have had like run up and they've just hit him and smacked him around like you're talking about. He's in Batman's head. He has this ability to get under Batman's skin and take him off.
That makes no sense.
Have you ever had a bully that got in your head that kind of like make you off your game?
No, I understand that. I understand who I can beat up and who I can't beat up. And there's no one, and getting in my head doesn't make you be able to beat me up.
Here's where we're not connecting. You're talking physical, and I'm talking a psychological war.
No, physical and psychological are the same thing. That's what I'm telling you.
To me, I don't think they are. I don't think they are.
Yeah.
They can be, depending on
how you're going to get in a fight. You have to be psychologically able to get in that fight. You have to understand how big and strong you are. If you're going to get in a fight, you have to know how big. Because I can remember when I realized this. I'll tell you this exact story. I was a kid. I was in the seventh grade, I think I was in. And I had grown up with a couple of kids in the neighborhood. And we were wrestling all the time. We loved pro wrestling. We were always fighting, like kids do. We were always fighting. We were always wrestling. We were always, that's what we used to do from dawn to dusk. Now, my one friend who was like a couple years older than me, he was the one who collected comics and gave me all this other stuff. He had a younger brother who was, I think, a year older than me. And he was a tough guy. He was one of these guys in schools who was always getting into fights. And he had a reputation of being a tough guy. I think he was in the 8th grade. I was in the 7th grade or whatever. And one day I was hanging over there and he's like, oh, you know wrestling? Show me some wrestling moves. So I showed him some wrestling moves here. And like I was not a tough guy. I was just a regular kid. So I was intimidated by this tough guy. I was like, oh, geez, it's tough. So I showed him a couple of wrestling moves or whatever. And he was starting to get pissed off at me because I was tossing him around. So he finally was like, well, let's see how that works in a real fight. So he started coming at me with fists, and I just toyed with him. I was just he tried to beat me up. I would put him in hold after hold, rub his face in the dirt, let him go. He'd come after me. I stopped being afraid of him. I was just like, holy cow, this guy's nothing. Because I learned that training I did for years with my friend actually worked.
Tim, what happens?
From then on in, I knew who I could take on and who I couldn't take on, and there was no psychology to it. It was purely how trained is this guy? Is he as trained as I am? He's not. Forget it. There was no one got inside my head after that. You can only get inside someone's head if they don't know what they can do. Batman knows what he can do. You can't get inside Batman's head physically.
Well, Joker. Oh, go ahead, Scott.
One of the things about Batman is very, very few writers deal with Batman up to his potential.
Yeah, that's because
Frank Miller.
Yeah. The way Batman changed I'll point out the Batman change. If you read pre-Frank Miller Batman origin stories,
right?
His parents died, and then he grew up, and he spent 4 years traveling the world, studying with the greatest minds of the world. If you read post Frank Miller Batman origins, same thing happened, except he didn't go out and study under the great minds. He studied under the great fighters. So that's when Batman changed from sort of a detective, a great mind, to a great physical hero.
Gotcha.
So that's why you get no detective stories. And detective stories are hard to write. Take that detective angle out, and it's a lot easier to write.
Yeah.
What they usually do now is computer says so.
Yeah. And who is it just said? Pope Cerebus said, "Read Batman's Graves." Is that the Warren Ellis one? Because I think in that one they were making him more of a detective.
No.
again.
The thing I wanted to point out, though, is that you're talking about physicality. The Joker never tries to be Batman physically. He does stuff like, look what I'm doing. I'm poisoning these Cub Scouts, these Boy Scouts with cotton candy.
I know, but in a regular Batman story, Batman would just punch him in the face, and that would be the end of it. That's my point. There's that Joker can somehow psychologically torture Batman is absurd.
Batman is his toy. Batman is his toy. He's spent years getting in
Batman's whole being is he's nobody's he's the guy in charge. If you break the law, he's the one there, and he's smart enough to figure out any plan you got and punch you in the face.
I think I think Joker knows who Batman really is, but if Batman took off his cowl and Joker went face to face with Bruce Wayne for a fight, he wouldn't do it. He wants Batman. He's that nuts and obsessed.
Being nuts is not an advantage. Being nuts is a disadvantage.
Have you not had I hate to go this far with it, but have you not had a woman mess with your head?
Yes, they have, but that's not what we're talking about.
It is. It's the same thing.
No,
there's an issue. There's an issue of Greg Rucka's Queen and Country, where Greg Rucka wrote this: if somebody's shooting at you, run at them.
Yeah.
Hey, let's pull me out here. Yeah, real quick. Me and Jared are getting along just fine. The vitriol he has is for the Joker. We're good.
Here's another thing. What subgenre of metal are they going to name the next Batman miniseries after?
Glam.
Death metal.
What's next? Thrash metal? Speed metal?
It's going to be glam metal because it's going to be the Joker and Harley, and everybody's going to have pancake powder on their faces.
Are they going to write it in Europe in neoclassical, Black Knight?
Okay. Yes, it will be done by German writers and Finnish artists.
It's just, I'm like,
Chuck Dixon could do Batman to his full potential, along with Alan Grant and Doug Moonch. Doug Moonch is one of those forgotten names with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was Mind the Comics comment right above that? Batman should simply track all purple fabric produced for suits. Batman could find the Joker in an instant.
The visceral contempt Jared has for the Joker is the same contempt I have for Norman Osborn and Octo Invaded. I actually was thinking about the Green Goblin and Spider-Man with the way you were going off, man.
Yeah. All the stories now ever since they brought Norman Osborn back from the dead, it's always Norman Osborn all the time.
Oh, that's still a sore spot with me.
But I kind of agree with Jared in some of these scenarios. Finally, you just look. I'm fed up with this. Let's just go ahead and end this right now. Just get it over with.
Yeah, and with Matthew saying that he also has contempt for Otto Octavius.
Country metal.
No,
because Otto Octavius is then Slott's favorite character.
Well, that's right. Didn't he make him Spider-Man for a while?
Yes, the superior Spider-Man.
The superior Spider-Man.
About half an hour ago or so, Pope Cerebus asked if there was a good Dan Slott run. Well, there is. It's the She-Hulk and the first Great Lakes Avengers miniseries. That's it.
Dan Slott's Spider-Man and that Superior Spider-Man is just like those two movies, The Amazing Spider-Man. People will try to defend it with me, and as they talk trying to defend it, they start like, "Oh God, it does suck." I'm like, they hear it out loud, and I'm like, I don't have to do it.
The only thing I read of his from Spider-Man, I think the whole thing of was Spider Island. And
I heard.
I didn't think it was horrible, but I think once again, I thought it was decent, but I can't remove it from the context of it's being created in an era where there's 9,000 Spider-Man. So to me, it's just like, who cares?
And the other thing is that even Humberto Ramos's art, I was like, what the hell's going on here? What happened? But I have Dan Slott. I don't know if it's his first work or his first Spider-Man work. It's in the back of an annual that I have. And it was so funny because it stuck out in my mind because I was like, absolutely nothing happened in his little short story. That's why it stuck out in my mind. I'm like, what did I just read? Nothing happened. And now all of a sudden it blew my mind where 25 years later, I found out 2010 or 12, I found out Dan Slott is still around. And then he took over Spider-Man. And I keep going back to that annual.
He is a study in persistence. because he used to be. He's a nice guy too. He used to hang out in the office all through the '90s, picking up little jobs here and there, and he was a solid writer. He could write a story with a little sense of humor, but he wasn't. He of course wasn't a big name all through the '90s because there was other. But he would get, since everybody in the office knew him, he would be there all the time. They'd give him occasional stuff here and there. And then it was, like I said, it was the early 2000s, maybe 2005. He all of a sudden started, becoming more of a star writer. And I was like, wow, look at that. That's persistent, because most people who kind of had his trajectory, where they were hanging out in the office in the '90s, picking up a job here or there, gave up after 5 years.
Yeah.
Because, when you only get a couple of little stories here and there over a decade, you usually go find something else to do. But he managed to hang on, and I think he was writing some like kids books for DC in the early 2000s too. So it's just amazing to me that he went on to be a star writer.
Well, I will say, after seeing him, I mean, I'm not even going to talk about his online stuff. I was there for when that started. I mean, back in the day. But I've seen him twice at Baltimore Con, and I watched. He comes off very nice.
He's a nice guy.
And the line he had and stuff, I don't think he's a star writer. I think he's a cult writer. I think he has a very
if you were writing Spider-Man, you're a star writer.
You think in today's world?
Yeah, they were. I mean, for comic books. I mean, he's not a star writer like Neil Gaiman.
Mm-hmm.
But for comic books, he's a star. When they give you Spider-Man for 10 years, you're a star writer. Okay. Your name sells comics.
Or is it because you don't have other writers there that have been persistent?
They would not have given him the book if it didn't sell. I mean, trust me, they didn't give him books for 15 years.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's like, did he earn it, or is it because?
He earned it just by he was always a solid writer.
Okay.
I mean, he wasn't, but he was never like I said, I can't think of any other writer who hung around for that long and became like like Neil Gaiman was Neil Gaiman right away. So immediately everybody had awe of Neil Gaiman. So it's like, ooh.
I think
and like Alan Moore was Alan Moore pretty quickly. So everybody was in awe with Alan Moore. And like some of the TV writers, everybody was in awe of because they wrote for TV. Brian Bendis was, a star writer right away. So everybody's in awe with. Nobody takes 15 years to become a star writer. It doesn't happen.
I want to go off on a tangent or something. Can you think of an artist who came in with his first work, what I would consider to be fully formed, like what he would be in his prime?
Doesn't usually happen. No, because it takes so much work to become a good comic book artist that almost everybody's first work.
I can only think of one, and he was a comic strip artist, and that was Hal Foster. Hal Foster.
Hal Foster. I don't know Hal Foster's history, but I'm sure he was around.
He did Tarzan before he did Prince Valiant. Okay.
Yeah, but I'm sure he was assisting people behind the scenes before he got his own strip. That's how it worked in those days. Well, they just didn't hand you your own comic strip. You had to be so and so's assistant, and then eventually you worked, and you had to come up with 3 weeks of a comic strip to show the syndicate before you got your own strip.
Well, Hal Foster, he bicycled from Nova Scotia to Chicago to show off his artwork, and they immediately gave him a job.
Okay. Yeah. Like I said, I don't know his story, so I'm not sure.
But I'm trying to think,
happened, but that's extremely
in terms of just actual comic books. Right. I was trying to think of anybody that came. You're talking about artists, or authors that had reputation right off the bat.
Right.
And I was trying to think of that with an artist, and I really can't think of too many.
Since the 60s, you can't find one.
Right.
No, not this. Well, there were no young artists in the 60s. It wasn't until that Steranko generation started breaking in, and like the guys from the studio in the 70s, that young artists started coming in.
And before Steranko became Steranko, Stan made him ink Kirby first.
Right. He was not, and even Barry Smith's original stuff wasn't that.
Yeah, Barry Smith's original stuff was very much a Kirby clone.
Yeah, he was a Kirby clone.
But he did the interview where he said that they would pass around the Kirby pages and say, "Do it like this."
Right.
But real quick with Dan Slott, in 30 years, he doesn't have that great, in my opinion, he hasn't had that great run and that great thing that makes him a star. Nothing influential.
Spider-Man. Just because you don't like Spider-Man doesn't mean that Spider-Man didn't make him a star.
I love Spider-Man.
Yeah. The thing is
his Spider-Man. I mean,
he does something good, cult, which is the Great Lakes Avengers and She-Hulk.
Cult,
right?
And
then they give him Spider-Man, and he starts phoning it in. No, because now he feels it's safe.
Yeah,
I got the.
He wrote Spider-Man for over a decade. I don't think he's. If you want to,
but that's easy nowadays because
many years later.
Because what you wrote for 20 issues nowadays you write for 120.
Right.
Every 6-issue trade paperback is actually only 22 pages worth of story.
Yeah. I think he's just got a solid fan base, and he's a cult writer, and he's got.
He's not. If you're writing Spider-Man, Marvel's flagship title, you're not a cult writer. You're a mainstream superhero writer. Maybe he was a cult writer before he wrote Spider-Man, but not after.
I agree. He's a mainstream writer. I just think that his old stuff is better.
Right? You like. I can understand that. That is the story of every cult writer, musician, artist,
they become mainstream
movie maker.
Dan Slott used his writing power on Spider-Man to troll Spider-Man fans. Maybe that's why it's not a great run, in my opinion. I don't know.
I'm not saying you have to like it. I'm saying he was a star writer because he went from cult writer to star writer because of Spider-Man. That's all. I'm just labeling him. Whether you think it's good or bad is meaningless.
You're very passionate tonight, man. This is good. Very passionate tonight.
I'm all worked up. Woohoo!
I'm the one that had the bad week, sir. Don't steal my thunder.
He gonna get funky like a monkey. You understand?
I love talking about comics.
All right, I gotta pee. I'm just gonna be blunt. We're all friends. I gotta go pee.
That's fine.
Okay.
Tim's checking out his European comics.
Peeing. Gee whiz, he likes those comics.
I see what you did there.
All right, what do we see, Matthew? He said, sometimes I wish Mike Barron, Carl Potts, and Chuck Dixon would have worked on Spider-Man. Imagine a Dixon Punisher sniping Osborn while he's on his glider. Yeah.
I haven't read a Spider-Man book since the 90s.
That's the problem with a character like the Punisher who kills people is you really can't put him in the Marvel universe where you don't kill people.
Yeah. Because, there was one of the Punisher series where he's in the first issue he kills Stiltman with a bazooka.
Yeah.
Daredevil never did that.
Right. You can't that's one of the rules of superhero comics is you can't just kill people.
But that's why the Punisher never had supervillains, or he never fought the other guy's supervillains, because he would kill them.
Right. Well, also keep in mind, if we lived in a world in a superhero world where you could kill, Punisher would be the first guy dead because he's got no superpowers.
No. His advantage in the Marvel universe is the only one who knows how to use a gun, apparently.
Right. It's like Spider-Man could kill just about every villain he faced. When you think about, it's like the Punisher would not be able to shoot Spider-Man with a gun.
Right.
When you think about the real world effects of Spider-Man being 20 times faster than a normal human being, that means you can't even aim at him. If you aim at him and fire, he's not where you think he was. Right. He will have already punched you in the jaw and taken your head off by the time you fire that gun. That's how fast Spider-Man would actually be.
Same thing with Superman. He's almost as fast as the Flash, but he's got all this other stuff on top of it.
Superman could kill you from orbit.
Yes.
It's like so that's why you can't have those solutions. You can't have Punisher solutions in superhero books.
Gore Vidal just came in, and he says that Art Adams appeared out of nowhere with his wonderful artwork. Why are we arguing about this?
We were just discussing this last week. Early Art Adams, you could copy. Current Art Adams, you can't even copy. I mean, Art Adams was good, but if you go back and look at those long shots, They're really crude compared to what Art Adams became. So, I mean, there are guys you can tell are good right away, but they always get better with time. And Art Adams was one of those guys you could tell was good right away, but got better with time. Frank Miller was another guy. You could tell right away was good, but he just got better with time.
Yeah.
Up until a certain point.
Have you seen John Burns? Have you seen John Burns' Doomsday Plus One?
Yeah,
that's one of the first.
That thing is terrible. Yeah, that thing is terrible compared to his work on the Champions. And the Champions is his worst Marvel work.
That was my first exposure to John Byrne was Doomsday.
But you can tell he's going to be good even in Doomsday Plus One. That's what it is.
You know what you can tell? Early Brian Hitch. I have Mystic Wars from Marvel UK. That thing is terrible. It's one of the worst Alan Davis clones I've ever seen.
Hitch, the early Hitch.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I got a Superman annual. I was like, "What is this?" And I think it was Armageddon 2000 or something. Hey, Jared, while I was in there contemplating things, just kind of thinking about the world. I'm sitting here wanting to do a search to see if Dan Slott ever did a Joker story, and then we'll go again.
Something we can both dislike.
Did Liefeld get better? Yeah, he did. It did.
That's not saying a whole lot.
I'm not.
But he did because the stuff he did in Marvel Comics Presents.
Right.
And that was awful.
Liefeld stuff now he can draw better than he did back then, but
again, that's not saying a whole lot.
But he did improve.
I'm not. Hold on, let me turn my phone off. I'm not doing any more phone calls. I'm off. Anyway,
you're done with work. Let me show you one more thing I finished reading this week. This is my friend Spencer Lamb sent me this. This is the book he edited, The Matrix Comics, hardcover. This originally appeared in the Matrix website in the late 90s.
I remember those.
And I was surprised at how much I liked this. I mean, I shouldn't be that surprised because there's a lot of I showed you this, but there's a lot of talent on this. It's got Bill Sienkiewicz, Peter Bagg, Jeff Darrow, David Lapham, Paul Chadwick, Killen Plunkett, Greg Ruth, Michael Oeming, Vince Evans, Jeff Darrow. I mean, Tim Sale, Jim Kruger, Mike Kaluta.
I'm going to try to go through some more boxes this weekend, but it's funny because I think it was like around 2002 or something. I actually bought a bootleg of some of those comics that were actually on typing paper and stapled. And it was like a little bit bigger than take type of paper and fold it. That's how big it was. And I was like, this is cool. $5.
But what I really liked about this was I've seen the Matrix movies, of course, but I wouldn't call myself a fan of sort of the Matrix universe.
I liked the first two movies, but that third one was rough, man.
I like if you ever want to read something interesting about the Matrix, someone wrote years ago. Look it up. It's the Matrix in Neo as the Gnostic Jesus. He wrote a really good article on it at how the Gnostic Christians had a particular point of view in like the Middle Ages. They were wiped out by the Catholic Church, but how Neo fits kind of the Gnostic Jesus character, and it's really an interesting article. But I've never kind of wanted to go rewatch the Matrix movies, but now I kind of do after reading this because these are I'd call these slice of life Matrix stories. They're all sort of short stories, and I read them like short stories. I'd read one or two a day.
The cartoons and the supplemental material like that actually enhances and is some ways a little bit better than some of the stuff.
I was going to say the Animatrix was far superior to me than the movies were.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like this is all about the people who aren't the chosen ones,
right?
And how sort of everyday people were dealing with the Matrix and sort of everyday people who have discovered the Matrix and what they're going to. And of course, a lot of the stories end tragically because they aren't the chosen ones. Right. And they're just living their lives and stumble on the Matrix. And it doesn't lead to anything good. but it really made me like the sort of theme world of the Matrix more than I ever did. It actually makes me want to go back and watch the movies now, and sort of in context of this, because it was just like I said, it's slight, because I'm a big fan of slice of life stories in general. So this is, slice of life stories mixed with science fiction Matrix. So it was kind of, I really enjoyed it. I have to, top talent on it too.
Well, yeah,
that helps.
The second movie got maybe a little bit wary. I was like, okay. And then the third one just felt real self-indulgent for the people doing the movie. The Animatrix cartoons, you really need to check them out, because that's what kept me in there. Those Animatrix movie cartoons are fantastic.
What was interesting about this too is like some of it took place in the Matrix, the people there. Some of it took place with like the people outside the Matrix in the real world, and there was betrayals going on outside in the world, and you got to see some of the people looking for Zion, or maybe read the Gnostic novel. It grossed me. No. That's why the Gnostic Christians weren't compatible with the Catholic Church's authority, so that's why they got wiped out.
Nobody was back then.
Yeah, nobody.
Did you guys talk about Liefeld again?
Yeah, we mentioned them.
We're talking about artists that were gotten better.
Once again, it was Scott bringing them up. He's got to bring them up. Interesting that the Gnostic writers.
No, it wasn't me.
Oh, wait a minute. That popped up. All my comments just loaded at the same time.
Okay.
Gotcha. Getting back to the Matrix, somebody had described the aerial battle scene as like one of the best Superman battles you've ever seen. Like, I can see that.
Yeah.
We've caused all kinds of chaos tonight, like the Joker.
We don't know what we're talking about anymore.
But like there was one story in here. I think it had something to do with a fortune teller. Like there was a fortune teller in here who was able to predict things because she somehow tapped into the Matrix.
Okay,
and it was like and it, of course, caused her, when you can actually tell the future, that's a bad thing, especially in the Matrix. So it ended up with, of course, the agents coming to get her. And she woke up like they ended up killing her, and she woke up in her family. And she like woke up in one of the pods at the end for just a few seconds going, what is this? Before she was killed. So it was like her fortune telling led to her doom.
Right.
And there was a lot of that sort of stuff, slice of life stuff that, you could inadvertently lead yourself to your doom in the Matrix just by somehow detecting it. So there's a lot of slice of life stuff like that in there that was really well done.
Right.
What's Tim reading now? Oh,
one of the things we usually talk about is our early Spider-Man days, and I got the Marvel Treasury Edition from some Silver Age Ditko Spider-Man in the Treasury Edition, right? But what caught my attention there is that in the middle of it, there's all these characters of Spider-Man, his supporting cast, and it's by Romita, but it says we'll give a no prize for anybody that can turn around and name all the characters. And I'm like, that damn no prize. They want us to do their job again.
Someone didn't want to write labels on there.
But
is that bang back then?
Yeah, I wonder if that was new for the Treasury Edition or it came from someplace else.
I think it's a double page spread, so I think it is a pinup they just probably stuck in here. I don't know. What I've found out is a lot of these pinups and stuff is leftover art. They just have to stick somewhere, and it's usually an annual or a Treasury Edition. But this has like Craven's first appearance. It's like Amazing Spider-Man #6, the annual #1 with the Sinister Six, Amazing Spider-Man 35 with the Molten Man, and it's got Craven's first appearance in it. I mean, look at this Electro, man.
Oh yeah, that's a classic. That's a splash page, right?
Yeah, and like this, I got to admit, man, it's I was there with Spider-Man in the 70s. We talked about it the 80s. A little bit of the 90s, and this is just
to me. There's Steve Ditko Spider-Man, and there's everything else.
Yeah, Yeah,
that's just the way it is in Spider-Man.
Yeah, get a hold of something like this, and you won't have to be convinced. You'll just read it and be like, yeah.
Speaking of pinups, I don't know that I ever saw it, but it must have come out by now. I saw they were doing a Marvel Masterworks pinup issue where they took all the pinups from the comics in the 60s and put them into one hardcover Marvel Masterworks volume.
How many was Sue Storm with her new hairdo? Every time she got a new hairdo, every third issue, there was a pinup.
Well, actually, she'd be on every page. You just couldn't see her.
Look,
there are a lot
Fantastic
of
Four
Kirby pinups
for you.
Oh my gosh, what a roller coaster of a night! This has been a good one. If there was one show to watch, it would be.
Get me yelling about the Joker, and that's good stuff.
And what's the other hot topic trigger warning we can come across for one of us?
Well, I don't feel bad, man. Y'all brought up Bendis right off the bat. That's what did it. Okay.
I mean, seriously, I don't know enough about Bendis to have an informed opinion because my only real exposure to him was Jinx and a little bit of that other series that Paolo mentioned earlier.
My only informed opinion is I read about half a dozen issues and didn't like anything he's ever done. So
I think with me, it's where his powers was really good. I mean, it's a Bendis book. He does cops great. He mixed in some superheroes. It's after reading that and seeing that this what he can do, and then to see what he put out after
it's his creator-owned material, and the more street it is, the better it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
If he starts messing with superpowers too much, because Powers is not about the heroes.
Right. I read one issue of Powers and didn't even make it through it. So.
He can't handle large casts.
No, absolutely not. He had two, and they were like it was like a Raymond Chandler book. You would see them going into different worlds, walking around.
And one trope he does all the time that I hate, and I know this from my Marvel bullpen days because we used to have to paste it up. Is that as when he has people talking and he just copies panels, and that's him. That's not the artist. He asks for that.
Really,
it's the exact same panel with just different words.
Different word balloons.
He would also blow up a panel. Yeah, he would also take a panel and have it blown up.
And I hate that. It drives me wrong because it gives me it takes me out of the story.
Yeah,
it makes me think no time. I know it's just a trick. I don't know why he even likes it.
Now his Alias, I mean, I'll agree. Alias is a good book to read. He lost me when he started inserting Jessica Jones into Avengers Past and stuff like she's always been there.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that.
But you start noticing Bendis' problem still in Daredevil, because there's one issue where he has an old scene with Frogman. And he totally misses the point of Frogman with it, because Frogman actually has a couple of interesting stories where he goes straight and then his son appears and becomes Frogman, and that part messed with the continuity, and that's exactly what Bendis doesn't do well. It's continuity. Not only does he not care about he doesn't read and he doesn't care. It's just a service story. So what we end up with is a lot of people acting out of character. In Daredevil, it's especially the villains. The Owl speaks, with like he's a street thug. Richard Fisk, who is actually very, very smart and always cooking up something. Just Bendis had Richard Fisk drawn like Fredo from The Godfather. And he's inactive and he doesn't do stuff, and in the end it's Vanessa who is always covering up for Richard when his schemes backfire, and Arm Wilson. It's in the end Vanessa who shoots Richard.
There's going to be a clip show one day of all the times I sit here and just kind of lose their turn off the camera when you tell me something that Bendis has done.
Well, that reminds me of the one issue of what was it? Ultimate X-Men. I read that Bendis wrote. I actually couldn't stand it because And he's also well known for his dialogue, which I think is terrible. I think his dialogue is absolutely terrible. I don't know why people praise it so much. But he was having two characters talking. I forget who they were, but it didn't matter which was saying which. It was just kind of like neither of them were talking.
And that's why I said it. That's why I said he can't handle large casts, because you have 7 people speaking exactly the same way. That was the problem in the Avengers.
Yeah, this is just 2 people talking exactly the same way.
Right, but you can have like you can have 2 people arguing, and you kind of don't notice it because they're arguing. But with 7 people, each one saying something, and then that's when it becomes too obvious to anyone that he really doesn't spend any time giving anyone particular voices. And so you have Wolverine, Spider-Woman, and Captain America all speaking the same way.
Everybody has the same voice. That's a good way to describe it. It's like there's no distinction in voices between the characters talking to each other.
They visit Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange would eventually join the Avengers because everybody would join the Avengers under Bendis. Right. But they go visit Doctor Strange, and Wong welcomes them in. Hey guys, welcome to Casa de Strange. Wong.
See, that one doesn't surprise me. Now, again, and to be balanced and fair with Powers, it was 2 cops talking, and he's got like the buddy cop thing. He's really well at, because when Powers was starting to hit big, I don't know if it's the letters column or an interview, he actually would go and interview cops or ride with them to hear how they spoke.
Right.
So he can do the research, he can do the stuff. And then I found out he was a failed script writer from Hollywood or something. And I'm like, oh, that's why he was doing research, not to be a writer, but because you start putting it together with him.
Right.
Now, I want to be fair here. Like I'm saying, I mean, Bendis has done some good work. I have heard great things about Daredevil. I don't know.
Yeah, so I've never been able to get past Malev's artwork on Daredevil.
Why not?
And I don't think he's a bad artist. I think he's a bad photographer. And he's gotten better, though, too. I've seen current Alex Maleev artwork that I've really liked. He's actually a good watercolorist. But as I've seen with other artists who rely on photo reference, if you go back and look at that Daredevil stuff, everything's medium shots. Almost everything is straight on medium shots. Because he was... one of the if you're going to be an artist who relies on taking photographs, you actually have to learn to be a good photographer. And at the time he was doing, you have to think about the angles, the lighting, the this, the that. And like I said, it wasn't like he couldn't draw, and it wasn't like he couldn't do watercolor well. It's just I thought his layouts were so I could see his boring photographs in the final work. And it was just kind of like, oh my God, learn to take a picture.
Well, are you real?
But he's not like that anymore. That's a criticism of his Daredevil. I've seen stuff he's done since then, and he has become a better photographer and therefore a better artist.
Yeah, and the thing is that I think you might be more aware of that stuff because you do photography, right?
Right. And I've worked. I know the process. I know the process he's working with too.
Yeah, there's things I can pick up on in writing and stuff because they'll touch on like my job or the military or something, and it runs all over me. A lot of people have been in the chat have been talking a whole lot about Art Adams, and I think it goes back to what artists popped up that we talked about.
Right.
I just want to acknowledge it. I mean, usually we get a lot of ideas from the chat, but
somebody did mention a while back they were talking about his version of the creature from the Black Lagoon, and that's some really nice stuff.
Yeah. Right.
All right. What we got here? I'm not going to back all the way up. There's a book called Comic Script Writers where Morrison predicted the next big thing would be superhero coffee talk comics. He didn't anticipate it to dominate for the next 20 years.
Yeah, and I got an opinion on this because when you listen to the history, to the histories of old comics writers and old comics artists, they all did something. They grew up on the streets and they got to fights, or they started their own business, or they would go get into a train and travel to the next city.
Life experience.
And these guys, it's like the Mind the Comics guy says, the diversity in comics guy says. These guys, their life experience is sitting on coffee shops and talking.
Talking about their product they put in their beard.
Yeah, and one day he was reviewing a GI Joe comic, war comic, and the guys in the Marines or something, and he's watching GI Joe, the comic about the elite fighting force, where they're sitting in a cafe talking. What kind of GI Joe is that?
There's a movie called Coffee and Cigarettes where this guy shot the movie over like 10 years or something. And he had E-Pop and Tom Waits in a scene. And then he had Meg White and Jack White in a scene where they brought out a Tesla contraption that made electricity. And he had all these little scenes he shot over the years. And I'm like, that sounds like what we're talking about. Let's give some love here to Gore Vidal because he likes to believe Lark art that made him pick up Daredevil by Bendis.
Yeah.
So fair enough, I hope this isn't painful tonight. So,
no, I think Michael Lark is better at laying out a page than Alex Maleev.
Yeah, is Michael Lark the one doing Lazarus?
Is he?
Is that him?
I remember Michael Lark from DC.
Let me see who's doing Lazarus.
I have his World's Finest miniseries, the one where each issue is in a different year, and Batman and Superman have a yearly meeting.
Not wrong. I had to go to the beginning.
oh wow!
Yeah, it's Michael Lark. He's doing Lazarus. And it's funny, this is a book that lost me when it changed formats. Because I really liked it. Greg Rucka, Michael Lark. He's doing the same, I guess you'd call it, that same sort of style he was doing with other stuff. But volume 1 lasted a good while, too. I don't know, 20, 30 issues. But
we got some Lark.
Then for some reason they decided to put it out as a square-bound quarterly book, one of those prestige format square, and I just don't like it for $8 an issue too. And I just don't like that format. So it's like I kind of didn't keep it on my pull list. I didn't put volume 2 on my pull list. And even though I really liked the book, I'm like, and also they did these, also in that format, they do these source books because Lazarus takes place in a future world. Let me see if I can find one of the source books. Hold on a second. These are nuts.
Out of the blue, we'll bring this up here in a little bit. Everybody good on time? Everybody doing well?
Yeah.
I'm okay for now.
Come back to that one. But I'm going to change this one, the title of this when we're done for everybody watching. If you want to find it again, it's going to be called For the Love of Dan Slott and the Joker.
I don't know if I have the source books in with the regular comics, but they're insane. They've got they're all type. They all give you the history of the Lazarus world, which is like 40, 50 years ahead of our world. How many issues? 24, 20. Why are these in this weird format? 26, 27, 28. Yeah, it lasted a lot of issues. Oh, then they did X plus 66, which was a couple of mini series of Lazarus while they were preparing. There's the source. I only got, I got 2 of the source books. And they're insane. Here we go. They give you these ads. And then the rest of the book is this. This is all the history of the different countries, of the different families. What is this one? Society, life under Hawk, the open way, the closed way, all the philosophies of the different families.
It's like a tourism book.
So
programming. I mean, it's just insane. I mean, I couldn't read it.
See, I'd probably actually be more interested in reading that than reading the book itself.
Crime. This is how crime and dissent is treated in this This is the source book of the Hawk family. Of the Hawk family, this is how crime and dissent is treated in it. Health crime, the River of Gold, the Ichthesian movement.
Sounds fishy.
And they added these books into the like the square bound. So if you were to buy an $8 square bound one, you'd get some comic book and a bunch of source book. And I was just like, I just don't want that.
I can see where that would be annoying.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't. I just didn't want the quarterly format, and maybe I'll pick up the trade someday. But it was like they lost a reader in me going to that format.
If you guys see a comment, let me know. I'm starting to notice the longer we go, the slower my comments load, and I'll click on one and I'll get like a bunch. So yeah.
Corvial, I buy the source books, but I don't read them. Yeah, I bought 2 of them. I missed the first one. I probably would have bought another one, but it's like I just flipped through them. They're unreadable. Not to shock you guys, but I'm happy that Kurt Busiek is bringing Astro City back. You know what's funny about me buying Astro City? I first started buying Astro City as kind of graphic novels. And then I went to buying the individual issues. But then they started making mini series out of the individual issues. So I was constantly having to put the next. I'm constantly having. What's annoying for me? Like, I'm a pull list guy. What I like to do is I put I put stray bullets on my pull list, and then I don't have to worry about it. I didn't have to order issue 4. An issue of Stray Bullets hasn't come out in something like a year. But I didn't have to worry about it because my comic shop has Stray Bullets on my Sunshine and Roses on my pull list, so they just order it for me. But each new miniseries, I have to put on my pull list. So when Astro Series started being released as a series of miniseries, every time I'd have to go, all right, get me Astro City this. So finally I was like, forget it. I'll buy it in collected editions, which often means I never quite get it.
Thanks to Wizard, I knew when things were coming out. I've got Alex Ross, Kurt Busiek, Wizard, Astro City. I've got a video a couple years ago. I got it all.
But you still have to put it on your pull list if it's not a popular item. Well, that's just it. If it's not an item they're buying for the shelf, if it's Batman, you can go to the store and just get it. If it's Astro City, you're taking your chances.
Well,
what was funny was when Astro City moved to Vertigo, I was like, forget it. I'll buy them in trades. And that's when they kept the series going for 43 issues.
Yeah. Well,
something like that.
A lot of that is I think he had to if it was going to be published there, But I
could have just put it on my pull list and kept it going for 3 years. But that was the moment I chose to forget about it and just buy the collected editions of it, which I never bought all of because that's what happens.
Well, Astro City was interesting because I was on board with it when I found out he was going to do that Marvel style, that point of view and looking at things like that. Mm-hmm. So when he was doing interviews and stuff, I think I got the idea that this thing was going to be sporadic with Image and all that stuff. Everything was going on. It wasn't a real shock.
Right.
And I was there at 95, 96. I still have the promotional poster that I took off the wall and said, I'm taking this. I've never done that before nor since. But it was around the Dark Age, the quality of the book went down. I mean, that book for the first, 10 years is solid when it would come out. Dark Age, I think he started having some health problems.
Right.
He always had those health problems. That's why all of a sudden we had to wait 2 years for an issue.
Yeah.
Because when mailing lists were a thing, he was in the West Coast Avengers mailing list.
Okay.
It wasn't a mailing list about the West Coast Avengers. It was about everything Avengers related. They just call it West Coast Avengers. But he was a member, and he explained that he could write a regular superhero book without any problem, but his sinus condition, it bumps into his brain and gives him major headaches. Yeah, and he can't concentrate to write an issue of Astro City the way he can for a superhero book.
And that's interesting because the Vertigo book, and I've talked to other people that were reading it. I mean, we all kind of came to the same conclusion. His single or 2-part stories were better than when he tried to do these multiple part stories for a trade.
Gotcha.
A lot of people that read the Vertigo series were kind of let down by it, except when he had like an issue 21 or a 33 or something.
Some of my favorite. I'm gonna have to go reread them. Some of my favorite Astro City guys were around the same period. I think he had a story about a turtle guy, right?
Yeah, Mock Turtle.
I really like those. And at the same time, he had like a metal guy who was like Bob Mitchum.
Tainted Angel. Yeah, Robert Mitchum. Tainted Angel. He was like, go ahead, Scott. I saw you.
I remember that story. I got out of the habit of reading Astro City after a while. But one of the things that still impresses me about it, 2 things, was he is really good at doing one and done stories.
Yeah.
And he was one of the few writers that could make me care about superheroes again.
Right. Like I said, the turtle guy and the Robert Mitchum guy were 2 of my favorite story arcs.
Yeah, I remember.
They were just little. And they were just little stories.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't the really big stories that he did in Astro City too. They were kind of little personal stories.
And I do have to say, I was a big fan of the work he did on the Conan book at Dark Horse.
Yeah,
he's got his Astro City short box for us.
Yeah, now Astro City really took off with a story, and I can't believe I'm going blank on it. I was ready, man. But anyway, there was a Batman type character, and it turned out he was a vampire. That's when Astro City.
Confessor, is that it?
The Confessor, yeah. The Mock Turtle. It's interesting you said that one because that was just like in between, they're in between a storyline. But the Tainted Angel guy is killing me because I know his name. Here he is. Right.
Yeah.
But this was fantastic. He was a villain who spent all this time in jail. Then he came out, and it's that slice of life stuff you like, where he's just trying to make a living.
Right.
To be normal. And he starts getting hired, and they try to pull him back in to the crime. It was excellent, and making him look like Robert Mitchum was genius. I mean, because it made it. You got the idea how he had been in prison because he looks like Robert Mitchum. He's as old as Robert Mitchum. You're like, damn,
I wasn't a big fan of the early Batman and Superman stuff in Astro City because to me that was all kind of low-hanging fruit.
Well, the Superman was the first superhero, so Astro City we get a Superman type character.
I understand it, and I don't think it was bad.
Yeah,
but it just didn't grab me as much as some of the later stuff did.
Right.
Okay.
But I can understand why he started with it, of course. Like I said, it's the low-hanging fruit. People are going to be more interested in it, too.
The second volume that I want to say it had 30 issues. I can't remember. The second volume after the miniseries, to me, that's the pure Astro City. That's where you got Jack in the Box, and you got the Lion, who was kind of like the cartoon that came to life. Just some really good stuff in there. But there was little things. The more you know about comics and read old Silver Age and Bronze Age comics, the more you'd pick up on.
Oh, sure.
Cracker Jack saved an old man like Daredevil or Spider-Man would. Like you knew that story. You knew that Daredevil story where he's just swinging by, fighting a villain, and he's saving people out of a burning building, and he puts them down and takes off. Well, Astro City had a scene where they stopped that, and it turned out that old man was really an alien spying on Earth reporting back. Cracker Jack had him right in his arms and didn't know it. You knew his story. You knew what he was doing. This is what happens after he left. That was what was so cool about it. You knew what the heroes were doing by just picking up a Spider-Man story from 1968. This is the guy he saved, Yeah. We got here we go, man. Still we have people like Astro City.
Yeah.
The Bobo Bernetti story in Starman. Bobo Bernetti was like a Rat Pack member. You might as well have had Frank Sinatra being a tough guy, And he came out of prison too, and ended up working at a bank, being their resident hero to keep it from being robbed. The Still Jack and First Family characters were the renewed my interest in the Vertigo run, especially the Tarnished Angel sequel, which is sweet and poignant. I'm glad you liked that. Looney Leo. Man, okay. I thought everyone pretty much loved Stray Bullets, but I read a comics journal that damn near roasted it. What?
My biggest problem with Comics Journal is I always loved the in-depth interviews they did, but I could always tell they had a self-loathing for the industry that they were in.
They just didn't like superhero stuff, which is I can understand that attitude, but it could be tough. Well, I mean, the problem is nobody's read the Comics Journal in 25 years. I mean,
I love this quote.
Jim Shooter once told a story in his blog that Gary Groth was trying out for a job as assistant at Marvel around the same time as Shooter was. Because when Shooter was 18 or 19, he tried moving to New York to work at Marvel, and Shooter got the job over Groth. And that's why Groth hates everybody.
Right.
Because he was passed over.
There's a Robert Mitchum character lookalike in the Catwoman run. He had an interesting.
Oh, look at that.
Nice. That's why I like doing this. Every now and then you'll get something like that. Mike, did we talk about Mike Grail, or they talked about it in the chat? Because this is
I think because
we were just talking about continuity.
Okay. Let Mike Grail do his own thing. Leave him alone. That's cool. I've gotten more of appreciation for Grail over the last couple years. He would have a great Warlord cover that I liked, or I'd find some of his Legion stuff here and there, and he never really grabbed me. But something happened the last couple of years where I'm like, I'm fine.
I remember first reading his Warlord in one of those little digest books that DC was putting out in the early 80s, because there were no trade paperbacks at the time.
Right.
So I'd always heard about Mike Grell's Warlord, but never read any. And then they put out one of those digest books, and I was so thrilled.
DC Blue Ribbon Digest.
Yeah, I used to buy those. I used to buy those in the 80s.
I'd get the GI Combat episodes of those.
As a matter of fact, I think I made a taking a look video like 5 years ago. It was one of my first ones on those DC Digests, just showing them off. Because like those talk about comics no one knows existed.
Right.
That's some of them. Like Adventure Comics even finished its run in DC Digest size.
Speaking of the devil,
talking about.
Yeah.
If you're an Adventure Comics collector, you got to get those DC Digest ones. Secret. And I used to like when, I think for a few years in the early 80s, they put out their top 10 in that digest form, like top 10 comics of the year.
Yeah, it's funny. I liked those back then, but if I had to read a book that small these days, I wouldn't even.
Oh yeah, my old eyes can't do it now.
No, give me an artist edition.
Maybe you get used to it. Here's the thing: if all your comics had been digest from the beginning, you'd still have newsstand comics today.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm here breaking out the shelf stuff, and then these little pocket books. I love these books. I still like those little digests. I still like these things, but these little things. This was the format that I was reading those Steve Ditko Spider-Man stories.
That's what I read my Steve Ditko. And like I said, when I was 12, it didn't matter that they were smaller, but now it really does. Even with my reading glasses, they're still small.
Man, I'm gonna end up reading this tonight. 1979 Strange Tales 130 through 144.
I don't know if I ever had that one. I had the 3 Spider-Man one. I had the Hulk one. I had the Fantastic Four, 2 of them. I think I still have.
Dave
I don't think I ever saw that one.
Dave Cockrum cover. Yeah.
They rearranged the art for those things, didn't they?
They what?
They rearranged the art to get it.
No, for some of them they did. For the
Spider-Man ones they did.
Like for the Spider-Man ones they did. I don't think they rearranged any of the art, but there were some that they printed in black and white that they cut up the panels and put like 2 or 3 panels on a page.
Yeah.
But like for the Spider-Man ones and the Fantastic Four ones and the Hulk ones it was the whole page, just smaller.
Man, I'm finding all kinds of them. I'm going to have to rearrange this shelf.
Yeah.
Dream Girl. And then this is where I would get my Golden Age Spectre stories and stuff, maybe Silver Age, and my Billy Batson Shazam. And this is where I found the greatest Aquaman story ever. I think it's 50 to 52 or something.
Hold on a second. There's a greatest Aquaman story ever?
Yep. You heard it
I
here
didn't even
first.
know there was a great Aquaman story.
Yeah, and it had Neil Adams' Deadman backups in the actual issues. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Steve Skeets, Jim Apro, Neil Adams. Man, I'm going to put all that back up. Well, guys,
Lots of. Like I said, there were no trade paperbacks in the late 70s, except for the Origin stuff they had. So if you had to get old stuff, it was in those digest books. That was it.
I remember those like Son of Origins and things like that because they had them at the public library.
I used to get them for Christmas, so I loved them.
Can somebody explain this comment to me? Desert Cowboys, maybe future stuff equal Mike Grell.
I don't understand that comment.
Desert Cowboys.
What's funny is that sounds more like Mobius to me. That's where my mind goes.
Desert Cowboys or Tim Truman.
Mike Grell was Space Barbarians.
Nice.
Or at least Aviator Barbarians.
P48. Jared speaks volume.
Our old eyes.
I think Grell's John Sable Freelance is one of my favorite comic books. I've heard great things about that.
I have all the issues over on my shelf. I have not read it since the 80s. I'll have to give it another look.
It still reads good. I got the trade paperbacks, and that thing is amazing.
A couple of friends of mine actually do a Mike Grell podcast.
Wow.
It's called Warlord Worlds, and they talk about not only Warlord but Green Arrow and all the other projects that Mike Grell is doing.
That's cool. What's the plot? Something of John Sable. I mean, is he a bounty hunter or what? What's the deal?
He's a mercenary.
Okay.
So you hire him for a mercenary, but if I remember correctly, he was kind of like a James Bond-ish mercenary. He was kind of high society, but not really. And he was a big game hunter too, or something. I haven't read it since the 80s.
He was a big game hunter who became a mercenary, and he started writing children's books. The thing is,
right.
Yeah, the thing is, he's a mercenary by day, writes children's books by night. Nobody knows. He's famous as John Sable, and nobody knows that John Sable is the children's book writer.
And that's his cover for traveling too, isn't it?
Yeah. No, because then nobody knows he's nobody. They inverted the secret identity. Instead of being a children's book writer by day, he puts on and beats up bad guys by night. It's the other way around. He puts on a wig when he goes to shows to promote his books and starts talking the different way and has a more upbeat personality.
Did you know that Richard Keel became a children's book writer in his older years?
No.
Richard Keel was the guy that played Jaws in the Bond.
I remember that name.
Yeah, sure did.
Okay,
Tim, which Dream Girl was that?
Yeah, that's what I was going to tell him. This is Adventure Comics 502, and that's an Ed Hannigan, Klaus Janson. Thank you. Cover. And this one reprints The Menace of Dream Girl, Adventure 317. It might be her first appearance.
You know, I read somewhere recently that his last name is pronounced Johnson. I have never heard anyone pronounce it Johnson. He used to come in the offices all through the 90s too, and nobody called him anything but Klaus Janson.
Well, it's that first name. It makes you think European, German, whatever. But I have the Batman Dark Knight Returns DVD cartoon, the deluxe edition, and there's an interview on there, a little segment where they talk about them working on the book. And the guy comes on there, and I'm not going to lie, I was expecting the man to come out speaking a little German accent. Dude's like, well, no, sir, no, not really. I mean, he was really cool. And I was surprised to find out Frank Miller kind of threw a little shade at him where he re-inked some of his own work. But then he says it's great to see a partner fly, and he's gotten quite good at penciling finally. And I'm like, what the heck? Man.
Well, Klaus was a big part of that Daredevil team. Yeah. And I don't think he got a lot of credit for it. Because Frank Miller was doing breakdowns for a lot of it. But then after Miller left and you saw Klaus took over penciling and inking, you were like, wow, the layouts were the most powerful part of the book.
But Jensen on Miller works. But You notice that there are times when Jensen shouldn't ink Miller because you get used to having him on Miller. But for example, Joe Rubinstein on Wolverine on the Wolverine mini works very, very well.
Yeah, Joe Rubinstein, man, and he's such an underrated guy, man. He puts his artwork and stuff that he does on Facebook and stuff, and he is. I'm trying to see here. Here we go. Scout, Sable, and Flag. All books no one recalls that much. I've got a really good run of Scout with the first 5 or 6 issues signed by Truman. I've heard. I would love for them to do something with Scout, man.
There's new stuff. There's new stuff coming as we speak, Tim.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I a TV show or something. Yeah.
I actually hear people reference American Flag a lot, but it's still not that well known.
I usually hear it brought up when people are talking about Shaken.
Yeah, well, I just heard someone was referencing it in whenever I hear people talk about books that should be in your reading list or something, or books you should have read but haven't. American, the first 12 issues of American Flag is always in there, but it's in the list of books you haven't read. So how famous can it be when it's in the list of books people haven't read, but it's always in that list?
Well, I mean, didn't Chaikin, I mean, this is when he was like smoking and drinking and stuff. I think we've talked about this before, but didn't Chaikin only do like the first 20 issues and then he started just writing it? And then handed it off?
That's when I lost interest in it, when he stopped. And it never really finished. It never really had a point. I haven't read that in a long time too, but I remember being disappointed in it eventually because, like I said, I think it kind of didn't wrap up. The story just kept going on, and there was never an end point, and then it just kind of petered out with other artists.
Right.
So if it had a better ending, it might be more beloved too.
I'm gonna die. I'm gonna
had a pilot, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna look this up on YouTube. I'm gonna follow over if I end up, seeing. Okay, Friar Tuck, you speak volumes, sir. You speak volumes there. Let me see what we got here. What's this? We got a question. Somebody's got a Glenn Danzig comment. I had to stop myself.
Oh my God.
Who's your boyhood graphic novel crush as a kid?
I don't know if I had one.
You mean like a comic book character?
I don't know that I was ever attracted to a comic book character.
Linda Carter.
Not like I was attracted to Yvonne Craig watching her on the Batman TV show. That was
I can understand why. Yeah.
Mine's Linda Carter. That's as close as
I can understand why on that one too.
Yeah, I was never attracted to a comic book character.
What about Electra Woman and Dinah Girl?
Oh, Deidre Hall. Yeah.
Oh, he knows her name. Holy cow. He must have
give me a minute and I'll tell you who Dinah Girl was because it's right on the tip of my tongue. But yeah, I love that Croft stuff. I was there. Yeah. But I like Dinah Girl. She looked younger and I think she was like 30 when she did the show. Right. But Linda Carter probably made me like pop my first chest hair at 5, not to gross somebody out. But I didn't know what was going on. I just knew I just like had to keep looking at her. He asked the question, guys. Sorry, man.
It's okay.
Anybody else got a comment? Another? Okay.
No comic book crushes at all.
Oh, God.
Danzig's an interesting, when I say character, I don't mean comic book character. He's an interesting character in his own right, but
after the comic book,
some of the erotic stuff he did was just god awful.
I was going to say, for the books that Glenn Danzig put out, he doesn't have a lot of room to talk, man.
Well, a lot of people don't like Klaus Jansen's inking, and his penciling and inking isn't particularly strong. So,
yeah,
not that it's terrible, but
I don't. It's the source. It's the source. We're pot kettle black. Right.
Isn't he the one who stole the Michael Golden drawing?
That's what I was just going to say. Yeah, he quote unquote borrowed that logo that was drawn by Michael Golden. To me, the best thing about Glenn Danzig was that Mike Cluta did artwork on one of his albums.
Is that the one with the skull that he took off the Crystar book or whatever Crystal book? Their toy line, their 11-issue toy line.
Yeah, that's where it comes from.
Yeah, I have that issue, which is funny because I didn't know that's why it was so hard to find. because it's a dancing thing.
Gotcha.
That's hilarious.
Where Glenn Danzig stole this logo from.
Can't speak.
Ungoriel tells us it lasted 4 episodes, the John Sable show.
It's a dirty black summer. I'm gonna be singing Glenn Danzig songs.
But you got to put more Elvis in your voice there.
Yeah.
Not being a metal fan, I don't know any Glenn Danzig songs.
Well, Glenn Danzig, probably most people know him early in his career when he sang for the Misfits.
Right. Oh, that's right. Yeah, he was a Misfits guy.
And his big single was the song "Mother."
Okay. Yeah, I don't really know his stuff, so.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the first song. Well, I'm not watch me get corrected. The first Misfits song that kind of got pushed was a song about JFK getting shot. You know, so
I have a friend who's a big Misfits fan. That's right. If I know anything about the Misfits, it's through him. So.
I might, Tim, see if you agree with me. I might be wrong, but I bet the reason that most people know about the Misfits these days is because that tattoo that Cliff Burton had that the Misfits used for one of their albums.
I would say that and they also had that, and then after Cliff died, they had the Garage Days by Metallica. I think those are the two things that did it. I mean, I'm with you on that. Yeah, in my opinion, yeah. I think it, but I don't know which would have been first, the Green Hell album, and then they saw who Cliff was, or the other way around. But yeah, I'm with you on it. I'm with you.
But it's just interesting. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Was it the Misfits who in the 90s put out a box set that came in a black coffin?
There's
several box sets that were in kind of that format.
I just remember I had a couple of friends. I can't remember if it was a Misfits or some other band.
I think there was a Black Sabbath box set that came out.
No, it wasn't Black Sabbath. That I know.
All right.
It might have been would have been the Cramps, maybe.
Possible.
Could have been the Cramps.
Could have been Rockets from the Crypt.
Yeah,
I don't know them. But I just remember I think the box set came with a lyric sheet, and my friends were actually disappointed to find all the lyrics they've been singing for so many years were wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
That's because we suffered. We had to listen to the music, and maybe you might get the cassette, and then you find 30 years later your lyrics were better than some of these songs. But the Misfits did come back in the 90s. They had a guy named Michael Graves singing with them. I liked it. And that's where you start getting that like David Lee Roth, Sammy Hagar kind of thinking with Van Halen,
But going back to that tattoo thing, it's interesting to see how just an individual picture triggers an interest in people that were not interested in that before. It's interesting just to see how you can trace it back to an individual image.
It's the power of art. Yeah. That's the power of art.
And you never know what's going to catch on.
Right.
And to be real, if we're going to talk music, Metallica fans knew Cliff Burton. Everybody else knew Cliff Burton after he died.
Right.
That's how it goes with that.
That's
so all of a sudden, Cliff has a mystique about him, and then there you go.
After you die, it's easier to market you.
There you go. I can go agree with that. I've never heard that before put that way, but yeah, Kurt. Yeah, I'm with you. Kurt Cobain's worth more dead than alive.
Yeah. Michael Jackson, certainly.
Do you guys
Scare Tactics?
Oh man! Do you guys remember DC's Scare Tactics? Their monster hero rock band that was
I don't remember that at all.
No, but I have a Scout issue and a Prowler issue, both by Tim Truman, and he put flexi
discs. Yeah.
Yep. And didn't an issue of Nexus come with a flexi disc? But that wasn't a band. That was them narrating.
I don't remember. Maybe.
I think that was like issue 3 of the black and white first volume of Nexus. Came with a flexi disc that may have had them narrating it and with sound effects on it.
I noticed some interesting things about what's going to happen with Netflix, but I'm not actually at liberty to talk about them. I'm sorry, not Netflix, Nexus.
I was like, what's he talking about? The Misfits?
Nexus. Yeah.
Nexus. Oh, okay.
Yeah, this kills me because I'm one of the people that it's not so much the Misfits, but with the Ramones, I'm like, that's not an accessory. That shirt. That's the only thing I get.
Would you agree with me that Misfits T-shirt didn't become a thing until after Cliff Burton made it popular.
I'm from a small coal mining town to where I really didn't know the Misfits. Right. So I'll refer to you,
Okay.
But it was that Garage Days and Cliff dying that I found the Misfits, and there was that song Last Caress. I'd heard it but didn't know it was a Misfits song.
Right.
People would sing it on the back of the bus.
Gotcha.
Okay, it appeared alongside the DC Weirdverse with Challenger of the Known, Night Force, and a called Fate series.
You know what that sounds like? That sounds like somebody had read Bloom County and found Death Tongue and thought it was a good idea to copy.
I've got that out. That came with a flexi disc.
Yeah, it did.
I have got it. I have a commissioned pinup by Scare Tactics by John McCrae that hangs next to my Bernie Wrightson Frankenstein poster. We all need to go to Matthew Rasco's place, and we're going to see his Strodium Dog stand-ups as Elvira and the Scare Tactics. Aztec. I wonder if he's talking about the Grant Morrison, Mark Miller 11 issues of Aztec.
I bet he's not talking about Aztec Ace.
I think they just reprinted.
They did. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I want to go back and check out from Airboy from the
artist of Aztec Ace had to change his name because he got such a bad reputation for being late.
Really?
I knew him in the 90s as Mike Bair, Bair, because he actually changed his name in like the early 90s because he got such a bad reputation for being late with his work that he.
Am I wrong, or did Tom Yates do some fill-in work on that?
I don't remember. I haven't.
I
bought like the first 2 issues of Aztec Ace and then never saw another one.
I've read like 1 or 2 issues. I'm like, it's very wordy.
Yeah. I think they kickstarted a collection of it sometime in the last couple of years.
Yeah, there has been one within the past few years.
Yeah, I think it was around 88 or 89 when they did that Total Eclipse miniseries where Marvel of them came in to do their Crisis form as a favor.
Oh, yeah.
And I discovered a lot of those characters. And it was really odd because like some of them I saw from like Bean World and stuff. I saw advertisements and comic news magazines. But it was really weird to see characters I thought were familiar and I couldn't figure out from where,
Going off on a tangent, Bean World is a really interesting book.
I used to buy that one all the time. Yeah. Larry Marder, right? The future publisher of Image Comics.
You talk about unique work. That is much unique.
Beans are born to boom.
Mm-hmm.
That needs to be reprinted because I found like
it has been. There have been collections of that because Larry Marder, the guy who did it, went on to be the publisher of Image Comics.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So he made some collections of it.
I never would have put that together.
Somehow we can't hear you, or I can't. Did my
Matthew Rasco is the fan. His place is always open. Just my dog.
To my foot.
We're going to do a show from his door, man. That's awesome. The dog welder appeared. All right, guys, I need to eat. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, it's time to roll it. We're coming up on 9 o'clock, so.
All right, man.
Paolo has to go to bed.
It's almost 2 a.m.
All right, man. Well, this was a hell of a show, man. I had a good time.
It was a good one.
This maybe be one of those benchmarks where people are like, you got to see this around the 1 hour mark. Oh, my God.
He just starts going off. It's great.
Mom and Dad, quit it. Mom and Dad, stop it. But again, man, thanks for everybody with the freaking comments and all that stuff. Ending this stuff towards Eclipse Comics and the Misfits. It doesn't get any better than that. Come on now.
You got to hear stories about me in 7th grade taking on people with my wrestling skills.
Yep. And let's all get together and start messaging Dan Slott and beg him to do a Joker story just so we can do this, man. All right, guys. Later. Be excellent.
Bye.
Bye.